What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. Pirate Shock the World 1 SW Chapter 1 Impel down dark, damp, rotten smell, irritating people's nasal passages surging, candles flickering on both sides of the aisle. From time to time, there will be violent coughing sounds, and faint fear and despair fill the air, making this place appear gloomy and cold. This is the world's largest prison, Impel down, ka-la-la-la. The sound of shackles and chains hitting the rocky ground sounded, followed by a group of serious-looking jailers, pressing down on the silent pirates in prison uniforms and gradually approaching. Call. The breeze blew, and the candles on both sides of the passage fluttered again, as if they were about to be blown out. Jong L, Admiral. Please wake up. With his back leaning in front of the prison gate, snoring, with messy black hair on his shoulders, Jong L, who was also wearing crooked clothes, was gently nudged. Behind him is a cage, and the pirates in it are stiff, not daring to make any movements or make any sound, for fear of waking up the guy in front of him. With a soft whisper, Jong L looked at the man with a fork in front of him. What's the matter, Hannibal? Also, I'm no longer Admiral. This kind of name can't be called nonsense. The current status is just an impel-down jailer without any military rank and official position. Stretching, Jong L slowly stood up and looked forward. The familiar scene was staged again. It seems that the powerful pirates were caught outside and sent here. Only this time, the pirates in front of him seemed to be a little different. Jong L, Admiral, is joking. You will always be Admiral in my heart. And the strongest Admiral, even. Having said that, Hannibal quietly looked at both sides and said flatteringly in a low voice. Even the three admirals now are definitely not your opponents. Jong L smiled. Let's talk less about this kind of flattery. Why don't we talk about why you came here to shake me up? Hearing this, Hannibal was shocked, and he leaned over again and giggled. This time, the headquarters sent in a group of amazing guys. So, I want to ask you to help escort me. After all, one of them is going to be sent to the 6th floor. My subordinates are afraid that something will go wrong. Hearing this, Jong L narrowed his eyes and looked at the man being held in front of him. Some impressions seemed to be Das Bonus, a man in the Baroque studio, code-named Mr. 1. Advertisement: this guy was sent to Impel down today. Then, it means that Crocodile, one of the Shichibukai, has been captured by Marine. It is also saying that the outside world has entered a new era. Thinking of this, Jong L couldn't help but sigh. 20 years, in this dark Impel down, he seems to have fallen asleep, and he will never show his face again. The once strongest admiral has also disappeared from the world. Jong L, Admiral. Hannibal shouted softly, looking cautious. Others don't know, they just think that the other party is an ordinary jailer of Impel down, who eats and sleeps every day, sleeps and eats, and is sloppy. But he knew very well that 20 years ago, this guy was a big man who once stirred up the world and competed with Roger and Whitebeard Newgate. However, because he made a big mistake and was involved in a major event, he was dismissed from all official positions and ranks by the headquarters and sent to Impel down. And, unexpectedly, 20 years have passed. This admiral seems to have hardly changed in appearance except for his messy, slovenly hair. Still so young, spirited, warm and temperamental. Huh? I was stunned. Jong L looked at Hannibal and nodded with a faint smile. Of course, this is what I should do as a jailer, but I also want to thank you for taking care of me over the years, Hannibal. Hannibal's face was flushed with shyness, and he looked very embarrassed. Ha ha. Jong L laughed. Give the person to me, and I will send him away safely. Hannibal was in high spirits and shouted, yes. He turned his head suddenly, bring Shichibukai, Crocodile over here. Das Bonus raised his head slightly and looked at the messy black-haired jailer in front of him, with a long knife on his waist, and a sloppy jailer. He didn't understand why the deputy director of Impel down beside him would be so respectful to this guy. It was even more unexpected that this guy was supposed to escort Mr. Zero. Who is this guy? After a while, with the sound of the shackles colliding, a gloomy and domineering figure walked slowly, wearing a prison uniform, but holding his head high, looking rebellious. It is the Sand Crocodile, one of the Shichibukai. He experienced another tragic failure in his life, and was seriously injured by a boy in a straw hat. It was an unacceptable humiliation for him. Moreover, this is Impel down, a cage that claims to be in and can never get out again, which makes him feel even more irritable. Advertisement: is that him? A voice with a little smile came. Crocodile felt a little familiar, raised his head and looked forward. When he saw the figure, his body shook violently, his pupils shrank suddenly, and then he fell into a dead silence. Others did not notice this scene. Jong L quickly completed the handover with Hannibal. In addition to Mr. 1, Crocodile, and the rest of the Baroque workers, they will be taken down by the way when they go to the 6th floor. Da 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 da, clear footsteps echoed in the passage. Apart from Jong L, there are only people from the Baroque Work Club, which also makes the eyes of the people behind Crocodile change, and they turn to look at each other and communicate. The meaning is also obvious. Do you want to start? This may be the best chance to escape from here. The footsteps continued, and the jailer in front seemed to be unprepared. With his back to them, he just covered his head and walked on the road without making a sound. The chance is great, let's do it. What about Mr. Zero? After a moment, they looked at Crocodile. However, he found that the other party's eyes were all condensed on the back in front of him at this time, and his expression was full of solemnity and seriousness. At this moment, the back in front suddenly stopped and stopped. As he stopped, the members of the Baroque Work Club were all startled, and then quickly stopped. "What have you been staring at me for, Crocodile?" The expression on Crocodile's face softened slightly until the man opened his mouth, and after taking a light breath, he spoke lightly. "I just didn't expect that a man like you is still alive." Jong L did not respond immediately, but stepped forward again. "Are you surprised?" Crocodile's eyes narrowed, his fists clenched but quickly released. "Under such a big event, it is an accident that you are still alive." Jong L laughed. "You're right, this is indeed an accident. So, to celebrate we met here. The invitation I sent to you 20 years ago, let's do it again." After a pause, Jong L's tone became serious. "Want to join me, Crocodile?" Chapter 2. Just a little bit the candles flickered, and there was silence in the dark first floor passage of Impel down. After a long while, Crocodile's hoarse voice seemed to be somewhat annoyed. "Stop kidding. Jong L, 20 years ago, as an intern marine, you recruited me to join you. 20 years later, as a jailer to repeat this thing." After a pause, Crocodile sneered, "And, still in a place like this?" Jong L laughed and continued to walk forward. "This is a reunion given by fate, Crocodile. It's one of the few opportunities for you." Crocodile's pupils contracted and he fell silent. From the other party's words, he heard other meanings. "Can you help me out?" After a while, the solemn words with a touch of expectation sounded. "Who knows? However, you can gamble." Jong L shrugged his shoulders, his voice playful. Crocodile took a deep breath, his eyes changed, and he couldn't understand the meaning of the other party at this time. "This is the world's largest prison, Impel Down, and it is also known as a terrifying hell that once you enter, you will never want to go out. For any pirate, coming here means the end of life and endless torment. Interesting, guys like you survived such a big event. In this way, what you said is somewhat believable." After a while, Crocodile stared at Jong L and said, "Back then, the man in front of him committed crimes that far exceeded him. I thought that the other party had been executed jointly by the world government and naval headquarters, but I didn't expect to still live here well. It's only been 20 years, and there are still few people in this world who still remember this man, right? Think about it, Crocodile. You know, I've always been interested in you and thought you could do great things." Jong L said with a light smile. Then, he stopped in front of a cage, and in the eyes of the trembling pirates, he stuffed the members of the Baroque Working Club behind him. "A marine, it's ridiculous to say words that are interested in pirates. And, to say I can do great things? Can I take that as a mockery of me?" Crocodile said coldly. "Carrara." Advertisement. The cage door was closed, and the two walked towards the elevator on the first floor. "I never mock anyone. You should know very well that with my power, there is absolutely no need to do such a thing." Jong L shook his head and said in a serious tone. Speaking of this, Crocodile's expression was also solemn and serious. "Jong L's power? To the outside world, no, even to naval headquarters, this is a mysterious topic. His own strength can be said to be very strong, the strength that can compete with Whitebeard and Roger. How can it not be strong? What's even more incredible is that he seems to master the ability to make others stronger, which is shocking. You have a lot of potential, Crocodile, just a little bit all the time." Saying that, Jong L turned around, put his thumb and index finger together, and then separated. "Just a little bit." Crocodile's face turned black. "And I can help you make up for that, as long as you mess with me." Jong L turned around again, opened the lift, and pressed the button. Crocodile's expression changed, and he remained silent for a long time. "Oh, it's a shame to hear that you were defeated by a fledgling kid this time. It's much worse than losing to Whitebeard back then. It's really sad that you, such a famous and ambitious guy, end up like this in your later years." Jong L spoke again. "Shut up, Jong L, you are still so talkative." Crocodile looked ugly. "Ha ha." Jong L smiled. Then, there was peace between the two. The atmosphere between them seems to be harmonious, but in fact, there was a war between the two sides 20 years ago. Crocodile failed miserably, and at that time Jong L was just an intern marine. Since then, Crocodile has been hearing about this man's reputation from all over the world. Capture many pirates with high bounty, fight against Whitebeard, and chase Roger everywhere. What's more outrageous is that this man has also established a mysterious organization in private. On the bright side, he went all the way from seaman recruit to marine admiral, and is even expected to compete for the position of the next marshal. However, in fact, it is the leader of a mysterious organization. That mysterious organization includes people from all walks of life in the world. Among them, there are even celestial dragons. It was not until his identity was finally revealed and he did that big thing that he disappeared from the world and never appeared again. Speaking of ambition, compared to his Crocodile, the man in front of him is even more brutal. Advertisement. Compared to him, he was as harmless as a sheep. The elevator quickly reached the 4th floor, and the two walked out. "The first floor of the sea can only be reached here. Go through the 5th floor to the 6th floor." When we arrived at Eternal Hell, it was even darker, it was silent, and no sound came out. The two walked side by side and did not talk anymore. Everything that needs to be said has been said, and the choice is ultimately up to the other party. Choose a comfortable place for yourself, although, it's basically the same wherever you choose. Jong L said with a light smile. Crocodile's mouth moved, but in the end he didn't say anything. He found a cage and walked in. In front of this man, he never thought about breaking out of prison. It was no different from courting death. After closing the prison door, Jong Lu turned around and was about to leave, but at this moment. How should I contact you? Crocodile's voice suddenly floated. The jailers here know me, just tell them. Jong Lu laughed. Then, he walked away. Suddenly, in the originally quiet 6th floor, there was a deep, mixed surprise, and a shocked voice came out. You are Jong Lu. That man. The man who fought Roger. You are still alive. Jong Lu turned his head and saw a tall figure standing in front of the cage, clinging to the fence and staring at him. Douglas Bullet. You are alive, and I am alive, so it's not surprising. He grinned and turned away. Stay well and be honest. Compared to outside, staying here, you can spend the rest of your life more peacefully. The voice quickly faded, and Jong Lu disappeared. After a while, he had reached the 1st floor again. Compared with the 6th floor, the light here was more abundant and warmer. Although the overall environment of Impel Down is extremely bad, it is better than nothing. Sending Crocodile away was a simple matter, but the meaning behind it made Jong Lu's complexion change after he sat down. It's been 20 years. He sighed softly, and a light flashed in his eyes. That kid Ace, he's grown up too. Chapter 3 20 years. Many people call him Jong Lu Admiral, but few people know that his full name is Porcas D. Jong Lu. Yes, after coming into this world, he has an identity, that is, Rouge's younger brother. Time has passed, and 20 years have passed. He has been hidden in Impel Down, has been unknown, and disappeared from the world. This is similar to the search for the bloodline of the Pirate King back then, and it is also somewhat involved with his own sister. 20 years is enough. Muttering, Jong Lu felt a longing in his heart. The dark and humid Impel Down, compared to the free and beautiful air outside, naturally he yearned for the outside more. It's time to see what the world is like now. Is the air outside still as exciting as that era? Standing up slowly, Jong Lu walked into his bedroom. After a while, when the door was opened again, he had put on a brand new outfit and dress. Ban-inch black hair, young but mature handsome face, plus a loose black robe, with a knife around his waist. System. Check your own attributes. Inwardly, Jong Lu looked at the panel in front of him. Soon, lines of text information quickly emerged in the form of tables. Name. Porcas D. Jong Lu. Position. Marine Admiral, Impel Down Jailer. Swordsmanship. Flying / Great Swordsman Swordsmanship. Physique. 6 forms, 8 inner gates. Devil Fruit. Restore Fruit, Awaken. Hockey. Conqueror's Hockey. Talent. Studious, unlimited learning of any skill. System ability. Strengthening, derivation skills. The clear presentation of his own attributes also made Jong Lu's eyes flash with a touch of disappointment and memory. 20 years ago, when he was 15 or 16 years old, he was a young man who got his ambitions. He joined Marine by chance and entered the life of openness. He can learn all skills without limit. As long as he is willing to learn anything, he will learn it instantly. At the same time, coupled with the ability of strengthening and derivation, in just 1 year, he has the strength of Admiral level. Even, he has the power to compete with Roger, Whitebeard and other strong players on the same stage. That era belonged to him and a limited number of people. Even, according to Marine, he has the potential to become the next marshal. However, when the peak was about to come, the situation finally turned sharply, and a major event happened, causing him to fall into a trough and disappear into the world. Advertisement, Ace, O'Hara. Marie-Joy. Muttering in his mouth, Jong Lu's eyes narrowed slightly. Crocodile's arrest and imprisonment means that the Straw Hats have embarked on a journey, and the plot of this anime has begun. An era of unprecedented chaos is about to begin, and he, the dream that he wanted to achieve 20 years ago, has not finished the road, and he can continue to move forward. Now, it's time to figure out how to get out of Impel Down. Strictly speaking, he is still a culprit, and he also has some kind of agreement with Sengoku, Garp and others. He couldn't step out of this Impel Down until the two sides agreed to negotiate. This is both a protection for him and a compromise for some of the things he did back then. For example, to ensure the safety of his sister, Jong Lu Admiral, I just reported to the headquarters that I escorted you to Crocodile. This is a great achievement. After those guys in the headquarters hear it, they will definitely let you go back. That way, you don't have to stay here anymore. At this moment, Hannibal came over with a smile on his face. Hearing this, Jong Lu smiled. Thank you, Zauba. That's what a kid should do, Hannibal he said, looking a little simple and honest. In the past 20 years, if it weren't for the care of the other party and some pointers, he would not be able to achieve the position of deputy director. Jong Lu nodded and reached out to pat the other person's shoulder, but found that this guy was indeed tall enough. His height is not too low, nearly 2 meters, but in front of the other party, he still looks half short. But fortunately, Hannibal bowed his head, bent over, and squatted down. Jong Lu smiled and patted the other person's shoulder. Thank you very much for all these years, for me to accumulate credit for every effort. In theory, it should be enough to make up for the mistakes of the year. Squinting, Jong Lu's heart fluctuated slightly. Well, it would be great if Jong Lu Admiral could go out. I heard recently that the outside world is very chaotic right now, and that's when a strong person like you is needed. Hannibal lowered his voice and whispered, okay. Jong Lu was taken aback for a moment, then patted the other person on the shoulder again. Advertisement. There is also some expectation in his eyes. Many friends who have not seen each other for many years. I wonder if they are all right now. At the same time, Naval Headquarters, Marineford. Master Marshal, Crocodile has been detained and is being held in eternal hell, the 6th floor of Impel Down. It was Jong L, Admiral, who personally escorted him into custody. The school officer in charge of the report stood up straight and said softly. Has it been taken into custody? Very good. Hearing this, Sengoku nodded. Then, he suddenly remembered something and raised his head suddenly. Wait, you said Jong L? The colonel's expression remained unchanged, and he nodded. Yes, Master Marshal. Sengoku was interested. He put down the pen in his hand, adjusted his posture and leaned back on the chair. Now there are not many people who know this name, let alone such an admiral. I used to be Jong L, Admiral, a soldier under my command. Said the headmaster. Yes? Sengoku was startled. The smile on his face gradually disappeared, and he became thoughtful. He also hadn't heard the name Jong L for a long time, but now he was suddenly reminded, and he just woke up like a dream. It's been nearly 20 years. After sighing and saying these words, Sengoku's complexion was a little complicated and he sighed. What was the young man who used to be high-spirited and hockey full of energy now? What a pity. He obviously has an infinite future, but he made such a choice in the event of that year. The colonel was still waiting until a moment later. After Sengoku waved his hand, he left. It was not only to atone for his sins and protect him, but also a compromise. Let him go to Impel Down and guard this prison. Now that 20 years have passed, the credit he has accumulated should be enough. Sengoku's eyes flickered. There is no doubt that Jong L is definitely a weapon, and it is a terrible deterrent weapon for the ruthless and powerful pirates. However, this person is a double-edged sword. It can hurt the enemy as well as yourself. Moreover, he knew very well that the kid was equally ambitious and wanted to do something. After thinking for a moment, Sengoku waved, go and get Garp. He decided to discuss it with his old friend. Chapter 4, The Secret Between Us. You said Jong L. When sitting across from Sengoku, Garp, who had white hair and a sturdy body, looked a little surprised. What's wrong with that guy? Isn't he Impel Down? Confused, Garp asked in confusion. Impel Down, but can I leave him there for the rest of my life? That kind of guy, I'm afraid it's impossible to endure another 20 years. Sengoku said in a deep voice. Moreover, his power will be of great help in dealing with the next world situation. Garp scratched his head. That kid has no bad intentions, he just did something wrong. Then get him out of Impel Down. Hearing the words, Sengoku rolled his eyes and asked the guy in front of him together, asking for nothing. What he did in Impel Down, the time he spent, has more than offset his mistakes. It's possible to fish him out of it, but, Garp. You and I both understand the danger of this guy. Standing up, Sengoku got down, stared at Garp and said sternly. Dangerous. Ha 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 ha, Sengoku, no matter how dangerous he is, can't the two of us still hold him down? What's more, haven't the three boys of Kuzan and Pulsalino all grown up now? Will they be worse than Jong L back then? Garp's words made Sengoku startled slightly, then sat down again. What you said makes sense. 20 years later, those three are growing and becoming admiral, but Jong L is the equivalent of being imprisoned in Impel Down. He has almost no room for improvement. Saying that, Sengoku let out a slow breath. Then get him out of Impel Down as an intern marine. Your grandson, hasn't there been a lot of trouble recently? Let that kid go find it. Hearing this, Garp's expression changed greatly. Hey, what are you kidding? Just looking for an excuse to let that guy let loose. Just coming out of there, with his temperament, he can't stay in one place. Sengoku said helplessly. Speaking of which, they used to be very familiar old friends. It's just that 20 years have passed, and that young face has become blurred. Involuntarily, Sengoku also felt that the world is really vicissitudes of life, like a white cloud and a gray dog. Leaning slightly, after looking at the credits Jong L accumulated in Impel Down for more than 10 years, Sengoku hesitated a little and put his own stamp on the document. Grant Impel Down jailer, transfer property files to Naval Headquarters, and serve as Marine trainee. A simple sentence means that from this moment, Jong L's identity has changed and he has become a Marine again. Promotion is hard to come by. After all, that guy will look very dazzling in the eyes of some people in the world government. Advertisement. Looking at the documents on the table, Sengoku shook his head again. His complexion was a bit complicated, and he felt pity and regret for that young man back then. Maybe, this guy's life's future will stop at an ordinary Marine. At the same time, Sengoku felt a little uneasy in his heart. With his strength and character, would he really like to be an ordinary Marine? Judging from past deeds, Jong L is by no means a quiet guy. It's good to be a regular Marine, do whatever you like. It's better than staying at Impel Down for a lifetime. He should know how to be satisfied and grateful. Soon, Impel Down received documents and appointment letters from the headquarters. The document was brief, but when placed in Jong L's hands, it made him laugh. Internship Marine? That's enough. Getting out of here means everything is different. At the same time, it also means that the agreement between him and Sengoku and Garp was reached and cancelled. Since then, it has become easier. After all, Jong L is a man who keeps his promises. Congratulations to Jong L, Admiral. After you go out, you will definitely be able to become an admiral again at the fastest speed. Hannibal said excitedly. Jong L was slightly taken aback when he heard the words, and then smiled. Hannibal, I may never be able to be an admiral again in my life. It was clearly written on the appointment letter. Marine, but there was never an appointment for an internship Marine's appointment letter. This also means that the ministry's attitude towards him can be a marine, but not promoted. Marine's career basically ended there. Ah, how could it be? With your strength, Hanayabal said in confusion. Jong L smiled and prepared to pack up and walk out of this dark cage. But at this moment, a prison guard walked over in a hurry. Jong L, Admiral, Crocodile, let me pass the word to you. Jong L looked at Hanayabal, who didn't mean to avoid suspicion, but put his ears together and listened. Speak, smiling, Jong L said. After nearly 20 years of Impel down life, Hanayabal is definitely his crony. He said he agreed. Hearing this, a smile appeared on Jong L's face. Wise choice. Hanayabal looked puzzled. Agree with what? Do you have any connection with a guy like Crocodile? Advertisement. That's a dangerous guy. Jong L didn't care, he just smiled lightly. Can I be in danger? Hanayabal's whole body froze. Of course not. Give him to me, Hanayabal. Jong L said, his words had no ups and downs, like a commanding tone. What do you mean by handing over to you? Hanayabal asked cautiously. The guard next to him realized something, turned around and ran away, not daring to listen at all. Compared to the outside world, Impel Down is definitely a dark hell. The darkness and decay here are beyond imagination. I'm taking him away, Jong L said it directly. What? Hanayabal shuddered, his face turned green. Are you kidding? I never joke, Jong L said. Then, how'd I report it? Hanayabal was shaking all over. This is a big deal. A prisoner in the 6th floor of Eternal Hell, Jong L Admiral actually wanted to take him out privately. Once discovered, it is simply unimaginable. How dare Jong L Admiral be so bold? How dare he do this? What's more sad is that he also dare not refuse the other party's order. You don't need to report it, you don't know about it. Jong L said lightly, as your reward, I will improve your strength. Saying that, Jong L stretched out his right hand and pressed it on Hanayabal's body. In the next second, the latter's body trembled violently, with excitement in his eyes, and he almost screamed. In Jong L's mind, there were also beeps ringing. You are strengthening the target swordsmanship, intermediate level. After the strengthening is completed, you can successfully advance to the advanced level. You can perform vertical evolution. After the evolution is completed, the target master will fly and slash. You are strengthening the target body, the strengthening is completed, the derivation is carried out, the derivation is completed, the target master armament hockey. In a short period of time, Hanayabal's strength has not only improved. After withdrawing his right hand, Jong L smiled slightly at Hanayabal who was dancing. Don't tell anyone, Hanayabal. This is a secret between us. Hanayabal nodded vigorously. The other party wants to take away the world-class criminal. Of course it is a secret. If he is exposed, he will die. He was planning how to push this matter to Magellan. Chapter 5. I almost thought he was your man. Hanayabal's mood at the moment is excited and nervous, excited and scared. I have never felt so powerful at this moment, and the depths of my body are constantly surging outwards. The outside rumors are not wrong. Jong L Admiral Master has godlike abilities and can also help others. You arrange everything and leave the rest to me. When Jong L's voice came, Hanayabal nodded immediately. I'll do it right now. Then, Hanayabal ran away from here. In the afternoon of the same day, Jong L received the news and went to transfer Crocodile. After half an hour, he had reached the 6th floor. Jong L glanced around and found that there were some other guards on the 6th floor, but now it was empty. Da 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 da. The crisp footsteps sounded, and he was the only one in the entire 6th floor passage. Soon, he was outside the cage where Crocodile was. Jong L. With a low, hoarse voice, Crocodile slowly stood up and looked at him through the gap in the cage with a complicated expression. Don't say a word on the road, just follow me, Jong L whispered. Then, he silently opened the door of the cage, and handed him a cloak with a hood and a ghost mask. Crocodile nodded, changed his clothes, and put on his mask. As a result, his body was completely covered under the cloak, and it was difficult to identify his identity. The two walked away from here in silence. In the dark 6th floor of Eternal Hell, there was no sound, only a few vague eyes staring at them. After a while, the two figures disappeared. It's fun. A soft voice came out, echoed in the air, and quickly dissipated. Jong L was standing with Crocodile at this time. He was wearing a loose black robe with a knife on his waist, and his face was flat. Do not speak or communicate with the person next to you. Soon, the two had reached the 4th floor. This floor, called Blazing Hell, is where the office of Impel Down Director Magellan is located. The number of guards along the way has obviously been reduced to a minimum. With Hanayabal's authority, it's not difficult to switch guards. The rest are also under the jurisdiction of Magellan, and Hanayabal has no right to transfer. But here, it doesn't matter anymore. Jong L was in front, Crocodile in the back, all wrapped in cloaks. The two didn't say a word. Advertisement. When passing the first guard level, the head guard was slightly startled. Jong L Admiral, is there another criminal to switch tasks? With a cigar hanging from his mouth and a smile on his face, Shiryu Rain's eyes swept over the prisoner shrouded in the black robe and cloak. Shiryu, are you in charge of this floor today? Jong L asked with a light smile. He could clearly feel the person next to him, his whole body tightening. You know, our director, because of the power of the fruit, the body is always uncomfortable from time to time. Shiryu of the Rain narrowed his eyes slightly, looking at the black-robed man in front of him. He is not weak, and he also noticed the strangeness of this guy. On the other side, there was a stern killing intent. This is not something simple criminals dare to do. And, such a strange outfit. What kind of criminals use this? Obviously, this criminal has secrets, as does Jong L, Admiral. Indeed, Magellan's belly. Jong L laughed, stretched out his hand and slapped Crocodile on the shoulder. The latter's body trembled, and the faint breath all over his body disappeared immediately. Then don't disturb you on duty, I still have things to do. With that said, Jong L continued to walk forward. Shiryu of the Rain was stunned for a moment, a thoughtful look flashed across his face, and then stepped aside. Then Jong L, Admiral, you were busy first. The two figures quickly passed him, and the guards watched with curiosity. Don't be nervous, and don't show your ferocity here. Jong L faintly transmitted his voice. Crocodile froze, nodding invisibly in response. I have to say, he was really nervous at this time. After all, it is the largest prison in the world, and it is heavily guarded. It is definitely not an easy thing to get out of here. In history, no one has ever escaped from a prison. Of course, with the exception of the Golden Lion, Marine has blocked all news about him. The two walked calmly all the way to the elevator on the 4th floor. On the way, they met 3 more guards. When they saw that Jong L was leading the team, they all let them go in awe without any obstruction. Crocodile breathed a sigh of relief. As long as he took the elevator, he would go straight to the 1st floor, and the chances of getting out of it were greatly increased. But at this moment, the door of the building not far from the side suddenly opened, and then a tall figure walked out of it. Jong L looked up and saw the other person, his eyes narrowed slightly. Jong L, Admiral, why are you here with me? Who is this guy? The man clutched his stomach, bent over and ran in front of him, and asked with a puzzled look. It was the prison director Magellan. Advertisement, just a prisoner who needs to be transferred to prison. You want to go to the toilet? Jong L smiled lightly. This time Crocodile learned the experience and stood there quietly, without showing any abnormality. Let him take off his cloak. Magellan rode. Jong L's eyes narrowed and sharpened. You don't seem to believe me very much? Magellan's expression also became serious. The duty is, Jong L, Admiral, please don't get angry. After all, something happened to Impel down, and I can't afford it. Jong L fell silent, which seemed to be an unanswerable question. To get out of here, you have to pass the Magellan level, but this guy is a man who is extremely serious about his work. This is completely different from Hanayabao, which seems impersonal. Take off your hat. After a while, Jong L said. Magellan watched this scene, her hands covering her stomach tightened, and her waist bent lower. Gu dong dong. The sound from the abdominal cavity was clearly audible. Crocodile didn't move until Jong L patted him, then he slowly raised his hand and took off the coat and cap that was covering his head. Then, a hideous ghost mask was revealed. Magellan was stunned for a moment, then suddenly looked up at Jong L. Jong L, Admiral. See, can we go? Jong L grinned, but there was no smile in his eyes. But his body is still calm and relaxed, without any tension. Gu dong dong. Magellan's expression changed drastically, and the voice in his abdomen became louder. He opened his mouth, but made no sound, then turned around and ran quickly towards the toilet. In a blink of an eye, his figure has disappeared. Crocodile stared blankly at this scene, took a deep breath, and put his coat over his head again. Let's go. Jong L smiled lightly. There seemed to be a pungent odor in the air. Crocodile didn't lower his voice until he entered the elevator. I almost thought that this director was all yours. Jong L smiled and shrugged his shoulders. Who knows, Chapter 6 going to Sky Island. The appearance of Magellan did not hinder the progress of the two. But after a while, they had reached the 1st floor of the sea. At this point, Hanayabao has already taken control of everything, and the surveillance image bugs have been temporarily shut down, and the guards have been switched. Jong L, Admiral, your boat has been arranged, just leave here. He walked up quickly. Hanayabao whispered in Jong L's ear, then passed him by, and walked away quickly. Jong L's eyes flashed, and he and Crocodile quickened their pace. In the blink of an eye, I saw the Impel down door that opened a gap in front of it and could see a little sunlight. On both sides of the gate, there were guards with expressionless faces, standing there holding spears, not looking at the two who came. Finally getting out of here, Jong L's eyes lit up, and even he was excited at the moment. After 20 years of Impel down, there is no light, let alone sunshine, and even the smell of the air is different from the outside world. Crocodile next to him was also trembling slightly, feeling agitated. The two quickened their pace, quickly approached, and then passed through. It was like entering a whole new otherworld: sun, ocean, breeze, sky. The colorful colors randomly shot into Jong L's eyes at this moment, making him want to cry out. Words cannot express the excitement in his heart at this moment. Jong L, Admiral, your boat is over there, Director Hanayabao, it has been arranged for you. He won't let us call him Deputy Director. The jailer next to him said with a grin. Taking a breath, Jong L restrained his emotions and nodded. After looking at Crocodile beside him, the two walked quickly towards the boat. This is a small warship flying the marine flag, which is generally only owned by the branch and school-level military officials. But for Jong L, it's obviously not a big deal. All major things have been done, and it is not a big thing to start a warship. After a while, the warship slowly left the port. Goodbye Jong L, Admiral. The jailer stood at the mouth of the harbor and waved goodbye happily, completely unaware that he had just sent away a world-class criminal. The warship sailed slowly away from Impel down towards Marineford, Uzumaki in the heart of Iini's lobby. Crocodile lifted his coat and hat, and then let out a voice. Is this a successful escape? Not yet. Marine has a lot of warships patrolling in this sea area. Approaching the headquarters, your situation is still dangerous. Jong L laughed. He was breathing the air from the sea, which brought him an unimaginable feeling. I never thought this world was so beautiful. Advertisement. Aren't you dangerous? Let go of criminals like me. Crocodile's tone was half smiling, because he was wearing a mask and couldn't see his expression at this time. When you are found, I will arrest you immediately. Then tell them you want to escape. Jong L turned his head and suddenly grinned. Crocodile was obviously stagnant, and then sneered. You guy, you are really bad enough. I never said that I was a good person. Jong L laughed. The sea breeze is getting more and more urgent, blowing the robe and the broken hair on the forehead. It meant getting closer to the big Uzumaki, and at the same time, the massive shadow of Marineford was looming. What's next? What are your plans? Dare to recruit and let a guy like me out of prison and Impel down. You must have something big to do, right? Crocodile narrowed his eyes. Plan? I haven't made up my mind yet. However, I need a group of decent men. Jong L raised his eyebrows. Naturally, a person cannot accomplish anything in this world. No matter how powerful he is, he still needs reliable people around him and subordinates. A decent subordinate? Crocodile wondered. Yes, a guy like you. Jong L laughed. Crocodile was startled, his eyes slightly serious. As a marine, what Jong L has done is really incomprehensible to many people. I remember you forming a mysterious organization before? He asked quietly. Organization? Are you talking about the virtual night? Jong L smiled, his eyes flickering. As he entered Impel down, the organization under his command would inevitably be purged. It's just that I don't know what the situation was like in the virtual night back then, and whether there are any remaining members. Shu Yi? So, are they still there? Crocodile condensed. The organization under Jong L was also quite famous. It has always been unknown, until that incident broke out and it appeared in the eyes of the world. At that time, everyone realized that it turned out that this man's subordinates had already gathered such a huge force. Its members ranged from commoners, nobles, kings to celestial dragons, with a wide range of radiation. Can you imagine? This lunatic, even celestial dragons has earned his command. Advertisement. Although, after the incident, the celestial dragons committed suicide, and their descendants were also driven out of Marijoy. Is it still there? Who knows? Maybe, there will be some guys. Jong L squinted and smiled. Where are we going now? Crocodile asked again. The order given to me by the headquarters is to find the Straw Hat Boys. Jong L laughed. Straw Hat Boy. Crocodile froze for a moment, then his eyes became cold. It was because of the other party that he was imprisoned, and his long-standing goal also failed. But I personally have no interest in him. Think of a way. I need to go to Sky Island. Soon, Jong L said again. Crocodile was even stranger. Sky Island. What are you doing there? Also, does such an island really exist? Of course there is. Jong L affirmed. You been to? I've been there. Of course he has been there. The Void Knight Palace is located on Sky Island above the sky, which is also the headquarters of his organization. It's just 20 years later, no one knows what the situation at the headquarters is now. Crocodile was silent, his face changed. He promised the other party, which means to obey the other party's orders. But what made him feel terrified, and even a little scared in his heart? Until now, he still didn't know the other party's purpose. What the hell is this guy trying to do in Marine's skin? On Sky Island, is there one of our companions? Jong L said again at this time. Is it a person from the virtual night? Crocodile was curious. Not yet, but if I go, he will be. Jong L laughed. Enel, who owns Thunderfruit, is undoubtedly a man who is very suitable to be his fighting force. Same as Crocodile, the same kid, just a little bit. Just a little bit. But this little, he can make up for. Chapter 7 don't have to be so gentle. The two chatted while noting that the warship was about to pass through the observation deck set up by Naval Headquarters. How much do you know about Ace? Jong L's eyes were deep and he asked softly. It took him a lot of energy back then, and then he caught up with the potential to develop in Marine, and only then did he exchange for the safe berth of the other party. But unfortunately, they never saw each other. Naturally, he was very interested in his nephew, whom he had never met. Ace? Fire Fist Ace? Crocodile was stunned and asked suspiciously. Good. Besides, it's better to hide your figure, Marine's telescope, not blind. Jong L nodded and glanced at the observation deck not far away. Crocodile faltered, hiding himself in the blind spot. I only know that he is the captain of the 2nd Division of the Whitebeard Pirates, and the rest is unclear. Well, the Baroque Works found out that he was in Alabasta not long ago. Jong L looked up, looked at the observation deck not far away, and waved to Marine who was holding the telescope. Do you know where he is now? After the arrest, the Baroque Works Society was disbanded, and my intelligence department also lost contact. I'm afraid it will take a while to regain information. Crocodile said solemnly. That's why I don't know. Just try to find someone else. Jong L sighed. I don't know if the time will be in time. According to the plot, Ace's arrest is imminent, and once he is defeated by Blackbeard and sent to Marineford, it means that the Summit War will start soon. He couldn't predict how things would develop, but talking to this nephew was something he really wanted to do at the moment. Crocodile gave him a strange look, wondering where this guy would find someone else. How long has it been since he was arrested? The forces under him have all collapsed. The other party, but has been in Impel down for nearly 20 years. How many major events that were once famous in those days have been forgotten, turned into distant memories, and become blurred? While the two were talking, the warship passed by the observation deck and slowly sailed into the distance, gradually moving away from Marineford. Meanwhile, Naval Headquarters, Marineford. Sengoku stared at the slowly printed photo, his eyes narrowed. Has Jong L come out of Impel down? Didn't come to the headquarters to report? After a pause, he put the photo down again. Forget it, give him some time off. Ask Impel down, Jong L's phone bug, keep in touch with him at all times. Advertisement. The soldier in front of him nodded and turned to leave. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed by. Jong L's departure has attracted some people's attention, but only to a limited extent. At the same time, there was peace in Impel down. Obviously, Hannibal suppressed everything, and Magellan, who found clues, also chose to remain silent. Everyone tacitly gave Jong L face. Saboti Archipelago. If you want to go to Magic Valley Town, just relying on the supplies on our ship is not enough. Besides, the deputy director is too stingy, isn't it? He didn't even give you a single Bailey? Crocodile wore a mask and said sullenly, in 3 days, he was hungry for 2 days before he arrived here. What Impel down prepared for the two of them was only 2 days worth of food, but when it was distributed to 2 people, it became 1 day. What's more, they are all people with large appetites and can't support it at all. Impel down, it's a place that lacks food. Hannibal, it's enough. It's also possible that in his consciousness, he didn't count you at all. Jong L said with a smile. His face is also a little bad. Hunger is really the enemy of man. After a pause, he raised his head and looked at the docked ships on the shore. However, here, we will not be short of supplies. No, just grab these guys. Crocodile was startled, then followed the other person's eyes. Although the flags were collected on a ship, it could be easily recognized that these guys were not serious people at all. Familiar smell, almost instantly can distinguish the identity of its pirate. You really don't look like Marine at all. With a light sigh, Crocodile's eyes flashed fiercely. Marine, never give up on pirates, do you? Jong L smiled. Afterwards, the two men slowly approached one of the larger ships. Although the flag was put away on this ship, the fierce aura of the people on the ship could not be concealed. Weapons were slung around their waists, and scars were intertwined on their faces and exposed skin. Obviously not a good person. Crocodile gave a wink, and the sand on his right arm was flying, ready to attack. But at this moment, Jong L pulled out the long knife from his waist and grinned. You don't have to be so gentle. As he said that, the long knife in his hand shook, an inexplicable breath swept out, and then he suddenly waved the knife. Advertisement. Call out. The void vibrated, and sharp rays of light roared out, and in an instant it was in front of the ship. What? The pirates on the boat suddenly felt the gust of wind, and suddenly raised their heads and shouted in surprise, but their expressions suddenly changed. But it was too late. The light of the sword bloomed at this moment and burst out suddenly. Buzz. The air trembled. The huge ship was directly cut in half from the middle, sawdust flew, and the pirates were terrified, deformed, and their distorted faces were clearly visible. Boom. The explosion sounded, and a large cloud of dust flew up. Who did it? Climbing up from the broken deck, a member of the cadre shouted angrily. But before he could finish speaking, he saw a figure leaping high. The man was in the air, and the long knife in his hand was waved again. Call out. The ship that was cut open was cut horizontally again this time, and everyone was stunned, followed by fear. The ship creaked, and it was slowly sinking towards the sea. Fortunately, this was the port, otherwise, no one on this ship would survive. Run. My God, it just cut our boat off in a split second. Who is it? The pirates panicked, feared, and ran to the shore with rolling and crawling. Marine, who was in charge of the inspection not far away, also noticed the movement here and rushed here. Nothing else, just say hello. Jong L slowly descended, crouched on the boat, and looked down at the panic-stricken pirate cadres. The money is a little tight recently, so I want to borrow the treasures on the ship to use it. As he spoke, the corner of his mouth twitched, and he looked at the treasure chest that had been cut open because of the 2 knives just now. Come on, what are you kidding? The pirate leader shouted in shock. I'm never a joke. Jong L waved his knife, and in the buzzing sound, the pirate in front of him was cut in half, the ripples spread, and a strong wind swept toward the surroundings. At this moment, a few grains of sand swept over, wrapping the treasure on the ship, and then pulling it into the warship. Wow! A sharp whistle sounded, and Marine's patrol team had arrived. Jong L glanced up and jumped back to his boat. Let's go. Crocodile immediately set off and moved the place. With such a big commotion, this port must not be able to stay. Chapter 8. Pluton Rayleigh. The marine team that arrived was led by a major, and when he saw that it was a warship, he couldn't help being stunned. Which colleague is this? It's so fierce, the other guys. It looks like the Barbie pirates. With that said, the major waved his hand, and Marine behind him immediately raised his weapon and rushed towards the panicked pirates on the shore in front of him. Moments later, Sengoku and Marijoy received the message. Have you arrived at the Saboti Archipelago? Robbery pirates, this kind of thing, only he can think of? Shaking his head and laughing, Sengoku knocked on the table and his face became solemn and serious again. Garp, Fire Fist Ace has also recently reached the first half of the sea. Something extraordinary seems to have happened in the Whitebeard Pirates. Hearing this, Garp, who was eating donuts, raised his head abruptly. You said Ace? Sengoku didn't answer. Although he knew what the other party meant, he stood up and said solemnly. Flamingo in New World, that vile guy. In recent days, I have also reached the first half of the sea area. His father back then had an indistinct relationship with Jong L. Garp's face also became solemn. Flamingo is here too? These two pieces of information made the two people in the office feel faintly uneasy. We have to figure out their purpose in coming to this sea area. A captain of the 2nd Division of the Whitebeard Pirates, a king of Dressrosa, if something happens, it will be earth-shattering. Sengoku muttered. At the same time, Saboti Archipelago, a sparsely populated port. Jong L and the two slowly docked the ship, and then the two jumped off the ship. Do we have to do things like purchasing supplies ourselves? It's really uncomfortable. Crocodile frowned. Then it's all up to you. Jong L said with a smile. Crocodile was stunned for a moment, and then his face changed greatly. Hey, leave this kind of thing to me? It's too contemptible. The two walked quickly towards the island, one after the other. Advertisement purchasing supplies is not a difficult task, food, daily necessities, and some necessary fruits, fresh water and so on. But for a moment, Crocodile had a big mountain on his back. Your strength is just a little bit worse, it's the lack of physical exercise. And I can help you improve. Jong L was on the side, smiling and persuading. Crocodile was startled for a moment, then thoughtful, and after a while, he actually did it very seriously. He believed it. It was enough to lose to Whitebeard. Not long ago, he lost to a fledgling brat. In Jong L's hands, it is the master's ability to make an ordinary person become powerful in a short period of time. Otherwise, how to explain his powerful strength and those who are not very talented in the virtual night, but are very powerful members? I remember you said that you will help me become stronger. Crocodile rode. Of course, but don't worry, right now, we don't have to fight some serious battles. Jong L said with a smile. Crocodile's eyes flickered, and he couldn't understand what the guy was thinking. Saboti Archipelago isn't much better, it's a familiar place for both of them. After purchasing the necessary items, I turned around and walked towards the port. The crowd was crowded, the streets were bustling, and vendors were shouting everywhere. But after taking a few steps forward, Jong L's footsteps gradually slowed down. What's wrong? Crocodile frowned. His identity is still very sensitive now. Although he wears a mask, if he is discovered, it will always be a hassle. Found an old friend. Jong L paused and stopped completely on the street. A faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. At the same time, his right hand hit the long knife around his waist. Old friend? Crocodile looked up and saw a gray-haired man with glasses with a wine bottle in his hand standing in front of him. I really let this old man see an amazing guy. The gray-haired old man had a flash of light on his glasses, and his eyes became solemn. Pluton Rayleigh. Advertisement the next second, when Crocodile heard Jong L's name, his whole body became tense. The white-haired old man with glasses in front of him is the right hand of the famous Pluton Rayleigh of the last era, Roger, the Pirate King, and the top powerhouse in the world. Day Tiger. Jong L Admiral. Dignified, serious, fearful words spit out from Rayleigh's mouth. Day Tiger. This is Jong L's codename when he was Admiral. It seems to be completely inconsistent with itself, but only those who have really fought against each other will know that the codename is worthy of the name. Just like a crazy ferocious tiger, its offensive is ferocious, and suffocating. Disappearing for nearly 20 years, does the old man think you are already dead? I didn't expect that today. Here, I would be able to meet by chance. Rayleigh said in a deep voice, his whole body being on alert. In terms of faction, the two sides are enemies and not friends, not to mention, this guy in front of him has always been inexplicably hostile to Roger. It wasn't until after Roger's death that he understood why. It's the best news for me that you didn't die, Rayleigh. Jong L grinned and a sharp light appeared in his eyes. At the same time, a violent and fierce aura also rose from him. The first to bear the brunt was Crocodile, who was shocked. Hey, you don't want to fight this old guy here, do you? Hearing this, Jong L frowned and looked at the crowd around him. Indeed, it's not a good place. The old man has been retired for more than 10 years, Jong L, almost disappeared from this world at the same time as you. Now I just want to enjoy my old age, why do you keep thinking about me? Rayleigh shook his head. Jong L was silent and did not reply, but his eyes flickered. After a long while, he raised his head and sneered. No hurry, we will meet again sooner or later. At that time, let me see, after 20 years, has your kung fu increased? Rayleigh laughed and said, the old man is already old, and I can't compare to you. Naturally, my kung fu is going backwards. Jong L stopped talking, and quickly passed Rayleigh and walked away in a blink of an eye. It wasn't until the other party left that the smile on Rayleigh's face disappeared, replaced by a look of solemnity and fear. Slowly twisting the lid of the wine bottle, he raised his head and took a sip. I actually met this guy here. It really scares the old man. After a pause, Rayleigh's eyes were solemn and he murmured. Fortunately, he restrained himself. But really dared to start a war here? Chapter 9. Is it a monster? Back on the warship, Crocodile seemed a little silent, looking at the smiling, relaxed Jong L, his eyes solemn. Did you really want to do it just now? Jong L raised his eyebrows and laughed. How come? That's the land of Saboti. Crocodile naturally wouldn't believe it. The awe-inspiring killing intent and the rapidly rising aura made him tremble with fear when he was close at hand. It was also at this time that he realized that the guy in front of him was a terrifying powerhouse who had made a name for himself in the world 20 years ago. It is on the same level as the legendary 3 pirates, marine hero Garp. That docile and kind outward expression hides the ferocity and madness of the day tiger. Let's go. We're in a hurry. Jong L was stunned when he saw Crocodile and reminded aloud. It is good. The latter nodded and took the helm himself. As the boss of the Baroque studio, this kind of thing has always been done by his subordinates, and Crocodile has not sailed for many years. But with a guy like Jong L, it's no doubt his turn. It seems that it is necessary to recruit more crew members. Crocodile thought to himself. As for Marine, based on Jong L's current state, it's basically impossible. Moreover, what this guy is going to do seems to have nothing to do with Marine. He wants to rebuild his virtual knight, recruit new members, and form a powerful army. It was precisely because of this that he aimed at him who was trapped and impelled down. However, Crocodile is very interested in what kind of members will be recruited next. As far as he knows, this man is very strange, and the members of Suya are also strange and have all kinds of identities. The warship traveled all the way and soon left the Saboti archipelago. 7 days later, they arrived at the Saboti archipelago, stopped here for a while, and left soon after resupplying. Jong L was in a hurry, and he was also paying attention to the clues left by Shu Yi. But neither Saboti archipelago nor the city of 7 waters found it, which made his heart sink. 20 years, perhaps the organization he once built has been completely dissipated. The world government will indeed not let go of a guy like him, let alone the empty nights of the past. You can only take one step. Take a look, Jong L murmured in a low voice. 3 days later, the warship arrived at Longchain Island. The supply is still sufficient, and it should be able to persist to Mogu Town. Crocodile said aloud. Advertisement these days, they will also encounter some pirates during their voyages, looting their food and treasure, and they can do it easily. Because of this, boxes of treasures have been piled up in the cabin of this warship. The food is enough for 2 people to eat for a long time. Then continued to set off towards the goal. Jong L spoke up. But in the afternoon of this day, in a place in the sea near Longchain Island, a pirate ship with a fox's head appeared in front of the 2 of them, and the flag on the ship was a skull flag that looked like a fox's nose. Fokker West Blue Bandit. Crocodile whispered the name of the pirate group. It's them? Jong L said unexpectedly. This pirate group, he has some impressions. The captain seems to be called Foxy, a person with slow fruit ability. The strength is not strong, but the fruit ability is very special, which is a rare time-related ability. Sail the boat over. Jong L said. Are you interested in them? Crocodile said unexpectedly. Silver Fox Foxy, I'm very interested in his abilities. Jong L's eyes flickered. The ability of the time system is naturally no trivial matter. The problem is that the person who uses this fruit is too weak. This also makes the power of this fruit completely unable to reflect. But this ability can definitely play a crucial role at a critical moment. Soon, as the warship approached, the people of the Fokker West Blue Thief group also discovered them. Captain, it's Marine, strange Marine, there are only 2 people on the warship. They came after us. On the boat, the pirates watched the warship coming and couldn't help shouting loudly. Foxy narrowed his eyes, looked ahead, and smiled. Don't make a fuss, there are only 2 enemies, just destroy them. Get ready for battle. When the 2 of them get close, they will be wiped out. The crew suddenly laughed. Yes, Captain, there are only 2 Marines, they naturally don't care, they have to know that their captain is a big pirate with a bounty of 24 million Baileys. Even on the Grand Line, it's a little famous. What's more, they deeply know the strength of their captain. With the ability of that fruit, the real bounty is far more than 24 million. However, the 2 sides approached, and when they were still 200 or 300 meters away, they were shocked to find that the other party's boat jumped high. Advertisement. Bang 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 bang. Several ripples spread in the void, and the man actually ran quickly in the air. Almost in the blink of an eye, a figure had already fallen down, landed on their deck with a bang, and stood in the middle of everyone. Long time no activity. Hope you guys can warm me up, Fokker West Blue. Jong L grinned, his eyes twinkling, his neck twisted slightly from side to side, making a clear creak. Fighting. It's really far away. It was so far away that he was a little unfamiliar. This guy is too arrogant. Everyone. The sudden arrival of the enemy made everyone in the Fokker West Blue Thieves stunned for a moment, and immediately became angry, and Foxy was even more angry. In an instant, all around Jong L, pirates drew their weapons and charged towards him. The wind was howling, and the top, back, front, left and right were all full of fierce attacks. It makes me a little excited. Jong L laughed, and a bright light suddenly flashed in his eyes. In the next second, several long knives swung down, and Jong L's head shook. Peefed. The sound of the weapon cutting through the body caused everyone present to be stunned. This guy. Not dodging at all. I can't escape, or I don't care at all. But, he's already bleeding. At this moment, several long knives cut through Jong L's body, and some knives even pierced through each other, not coming out of the abdomen from behind. A normal person would definitely die with such an injury. What? But the next second, the enemy who was hit and pierced through raised his head and grinned. I'm really sorry, because I haven't fought for a long time. So, forget the battle, you need to avoid it. Saying that, Jong L reached out and slowly pulled out the long knife that had stabbed into his body, inch by inch. Blood dripped and the sound of rubbing bones came out at the same time. Everyone who saw this scene shuddered. This guy. Is it a monster? Chapter 10 time pause? However, don't worry. Just a small injury, but it can't hurt me. Jong L's laughing voice came, but it made the Fokker West Blue bandits in front of him terrified. What are you kidding? Their knives pierced through each other's abdomen, and the internal organs in the body are probably in chaos. Such an injury, or just a minor injury. However, a shocking scene soon happened. As the long knife was pulled out of the man's body, the bloody scar on his body was healing at an extremely fast speed. When several long knives were pulled out by him, grabbed one from the pirate's hands, and threw them on the deck, all the scars and blood had disappeared. Oh my god, his wounds are all healed. It's too fast, not even a trace is left. This guy really is a monster. In the Fokker West Blue Thief group, some people were already afraid in their hearts, and they involuntarily stepped back. Ha ha, Silver Fox Foxy. I'm very optimistic about you. Join my subordinate? Jong L opened his mouth, grinned, and the light in his eyes became brighter. Who wants to join you? Inexplicable. Foxy was nervous and shouted loudly. But before he could finish speaking, he saw a flash of the man in front of him, already in front of one of the crew members. With a big hand, he instantly pressed it on his face, and then he laughed loudly, with the aura of a tiger descending the mountain, pressing his head down toward the deck. Boom. The deck cracked, dust kicked up, and the ship shook. Looking down again, there was another figure in the deck in front of him. Boom. Someone secretly swallowed his saliva, his pupils contracted, and his face had turned green. Hamburger? Foxy groaned. For a moment, just a moment, he didn't even see the moving figure of the other party, and the companion in front of him had already fallen. On the deck, bright red blood spread around, forming a pool of blood in the blink of an eye. My name is Jong L, join me and I won't kill you. Advertisement, otherwise, today is the day you sink into the sea. Jong L was still laughing, but that smiling face made everyone present feel chilled and horrified. Is this guy a lunatic? In just a moment, their perception of Jong L changed one after another, from strange, to monster, to lunatic. Foxy's mouth trembled as he wanted to say something else. Boom. A dull voice came out, and a figure on the boat flew out screaming, drawing a high parabola and then falling into the sea. There's not much time left for you to think, Foxy. Jong L laughed. Foxy shuddered, and no longer dared to hesitate. I'll join. Jong L grinned and looked at the frightened group of people in front of him. Wise choice. The combat power of the two sides is simply not on the same level. This battle comes and ends quickly. A quarter of an hour later, Foxy came to Jong L's boat with trepidation, and was even more afraid when he looked at the demon-masked man who was steering the rudder not far away. These two people don't look like normal people. One did not evade the attack at all, but healed quickly after being stabbed. What kind of organization did you join? Jong L was observing the fox-faced pirate captain. This guy said he was a pirate, but he didn't do many bad things, but to say how good he was, he didn't. Accept him in, all because of his fruit ability. Fox, show me your powers. Jong L said suddenly. Foxy was stunned for a moment, and looked at him suspiciously. My ability? Right? Jong L nodded, then urged. Hurry up. The latter's expression changed. No matter what the other party meant, he didn't dare to refuse. He flexed and extended his fingers, revealing only his index finger and little finger, and then pointed to Jong L. Slow light. The next second, a photon appeared, shining towards Jong L. Almost in an instant, it has enveloped his whole body, and at this moment, he obviously feels that his perception of the surrounding is rapidly slowing down. Time seemed to stand still at this moment. Delay my own time, and the flow of time in the outside world will remain unchanged. Jong L was thoughtful. This is completely different from the recovery fruit after his awakening. Before awakening, the recovery fruit heals and restores the wounds on his body. Advertisement after awakening, you can restore yourself in the time of the things you touch to a previous moment. Similarly, the recovery fruit is also time-based and can reverse time. The slow fruit is the flow rate system, which can change the time flow rate. With a twinkle in his eyes, the armament hockey on Jong L shook slightly, and the ability that affected him was directly shaken away from the dull light. Foxy opened his mouth in shock, watching Jong L move without any influence. This is impossible. Jong L raised his head and smiled and said, nothing is impossible. When armament hockey is strong enough, it can weaken the fruit's ability, or even make it unaffected at all. Obviously, your abilities are not developed enough. As he said that, he closed his eyes again and carefully felt the scene of being hit by the dull light before. In an instant, all kinds of complicated feelings came to my mind. The studious attribute is on at this moment, and he is learning the slow rays of Fox. That's right, it's learning. The system gives him the ability to learn all skills, and there is no obstacle between them. Devil Fruit skills are also included. In the past, his rise was too fast, and he didn't have many opportunities to learn any skills, and some skills did not need to be learned, at most they were just icing on the cake. But the ability to slow down the time system of light is undoubtedly able to play a crucial role. At this time, Foxy was caught in the doubt of life, and the whole person was a little confused. Armament hockey? Can it make my fruit ability ineffective? On the side, the eyes under Crocodile's mask also flickered slightly, and he muttered, hockey. For a long time, he has been studying the ability of fruit, but he paid little attention to hockey, and even, until now, he has not awakened armament hockey, observation hockey. But he is very clear that a top powerhouse like Jong L must be a master of hockey. Perhaps, you can ask him about hockey's cultivation. After a long while, Jong L opened his eyes, and a series of prompts sounded in his mind. Congratulations to the host for learning to slow down the light, strengthen the skills, extend the time to 1 minute, can perform vertical evolution. The evolution is successful, the evolution becomes, the time is pause, and the pause time is 2 seconds, the specific effect depends on the target's own strength. A smile appeared on his face, followed by a finger. Foxy. Foxy looked up blankly. Why don't you come and feel my slow light? Saying that, Jong L's fingers flickered, and a ray of light shot out, hitting Foxy instantly. Suddenly, Foxy froze there, motionless. His time was suspended at this moment. Chapter 11 can survive. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. For 3 full seconds, Fokker West was horrified, opened his eyes in shock, and then stared at the man in front of him with wide eyes in disbelief. How can that be? He will never feel wrong. The time around him just now has been suspended. This is, Foxy shouted in shock and became dancing. Far beyond his slow light's time pause ability, as long as he is hit, the time and space around him will be stagnant. This is simply too incredible ability. How? Jong L asked with a smile. It's amazing, the boss actually has such an ability. Foxy said loudly. While shocked, he felt awe and fear in his heart. Not long ago, the other party easily defeated their own crew members. That domineering and fierce look was shocking enough, but now it is showing such ability again. This guy is not only powerful but also terrifying. It is an object that is absolutely not to be provoked. But when in the world did such a weird, powerful, incredible, trainee marine suddenly pop up? It was only at this moment that Foxy discovered that the identity of the other party turned out to be an intern marine. Crocodile was on the side, watching Foxy jumping up and down, his 2 exposed eyes flickered. Is time on hold? It's so terrifying that it's almost invincible? He felt some emotion in his heart, and also had a clearer understanding of Jong L's horror. Obviously, the world's perception of this man is still limited. The warship did not change, but there was a fox-headed ship next to it, and Foxy's crew naturally set off together. With more subordinates, Jong L and Crocodile can obviously have more time to rest. Rough work such as supplies and purchasing items can be handed over to these guys. Hey, I haven't asked for advice yet, who are you? After seeing the power of Jong L, Foxy turned around and cautiously faced the man with the ghost mask in front of him. Crocodile didn't make a sound and didn't respond. Cough, cough, cough. Foxy was embarrassed. This guy is even more difficult to get along with than the boss he just worshipped. Advertisement: the 2 ships set off soon after one another. After the Long Chain Island, it is the capital of 7 waters. There were not many twists and turns along the way. On the wide sea, even pirate ships seemed to be rare, but some patrolling warships were more common along the way. When the warship arrived at Long Chain Island, Jong L and others did not disembark, and only stopped here for one morning. The pirates on the Foxy were responsible for purchasing supplies. Hey, who is the new boss? Do you have any impressions? That guy is really scary. If it wasn't for the marine suit, I almost thought he was some kind of fierce pirate. Who knows? But the captain gave in and was forced to die for us. Oh, that guy is horrible. After a group of people got away from the warship, they finally had the courage to discuss in a low voice. For Jong L, they were already afraid to the bottom of their hearts, but they didn't dare to escape. However, in the past few days, it seems that he is not the kind of fierce person. He seems to be easy to get along with. The female crew member Gina blinked. Speaking of which, he spoke softly to us crew members. Fighting against that day, it's not like a person at all. Talking to each other, everyone rang again. At this time, the whole head was still tied with a white cloth, and the hamburger was lying on the boat. As a fighter of the Fokker West Blue Thief Group, he was instantly killed with a single blow, which is unbelievable. At the same time, Jong L, who was standing on the deck, narrowed his eyes and looked at the city of water in front of him from a distance. The 7 waters are all artistic, and the stairs are well represented in this city. From bottom to top, the streets and rivers are juxtaposed and perfectly integrated. It's lively and full of charming local customs. What are you thinking about? A hoarse voice came from behind, and Crocodile with a ghost mask stood beside him, also looking at the city in front of him. I suddenly remembered that there are some guys in this city that I admire. Jong L's eyes flashed and he said with a smile. Won't you pull them in? Crocodile rode. Not far away, Foxy pricked up his ears and listened carefully. He had just joined the team, and he didn't even know what the 2 of them were doing. Now seems to be the perfect time to snoop on intelligence. The time has not yet come. Jong L shook his head and smiled. What he was talking about, of course, was the Cp9 team that was currently lurking in Tom's shipyard. There is no doubt that both the Captain Pigeon Man Rob Lucci and his team members are quite outstanding and elite powerhouses. Advertisement: if you can absorb this group of people into your team, the strength of your subordinates will undoubtedly increase again. But as he said, it's not the best time yet. Inviting members and expanding the organization is also very particular. For outstanding talents, we should not only rely on our own strength to suppress and deter them, but also know how to judge the situation and match the heart of the other party. For example, Crocodile, he met the needs of the other party, and just agreed to join the team. That afternoon, the warship set off again. After Jong L and others left Tom's shipyard in an office. The icy man with bare arms and a white dove on his shoulders gently picked up the paper on the table, glanced at it a few times, and there was a hint of coldness in his eyes. Day Tiger, Jong L. Muttering 4 words from his mouth, the man's eyes were filled with doubts and seriousness. Afterwards, he continued to lower his head to read the relevant documents, and his expression became more and more solemn. After a while, he came to a dimly lit tavern in the capital of 7 Waters with few customers. After looking at the man at the front desk, he opened the curtain and entered the backyard. Lucci, seeing him coming, the long-nosed man in the yard called out that it was Kaku, a staff member in Cp9. Have you received all the orders? Taking a glance, Lucci asked in a deep voice. What the hell is going on up there? We have been hiding here for so many years, and we are only 1 step away from success. At this juncture, let us carry out such a strange assassination mission? Zababa, if this mission is exposed, our hidden mission will also end. As his words came out, the other team members in the yard immediately began to complain of dissatisfaction. This is a task from a higher level, and the goal of the task is only 1 person. Lucci said blankly. Whether we succeed or fail, we just need to follow the instructions and attack this man named Jong L. In a word, it made the members present look ugly again. Success or failure? What kind of strange quest is this? And Jong L, who is this man? Lucci raised his head and looked into the eyes of the people present, his tone was serious and serious. Mission must be done, but I hope, everyone who's here next. After a pause, his eyes became complicated. In the end, we can all survive. Chapter 12 Celestial Dragons are humans too. Jong L, codename Day Tiger. This is the first line of text that Lucci saw in the S-Class top secret document sent by his superiors. A strange codename, he didn't understand the meaning when he first saw it, but soon understood the meaning of the heavy mountain under the name. Even, enough to crush this elite CP team, Marine ex-admiral. The second sentence made Lucci's pupils shrink and his heart trembled. It turned out to be an admiral. Who could have thought of this? Moreover, what is even more incredible is that such an admiral-level powerhouse is actually unknown in the world. He has performed tasks for so many years, from his debut to the present, he has never heard of it. In the old days, he fought against Whitebeard and Roger. He was regarded as the most powerful marine who was able to keep pace with 2 legendary pirates with only 1 person. Good at swordsmanship, physique, hockey, comprehensive strength is extremely strong, is an extremely dangerous evil character. Has made a big fuss about world government, in C Circle Calendar 149. The intelligence came to an abrupt end here, and there were clear torn marks on the document paper, which were obviously disposed of by the relevant personnel. And this, that is to say, the secret content on it, even an espionage officer like him is not qualified to touch. The above content is extremely confidential, it will be burned after reading it, and must not be known to outsiders. At the end of the information, it was marked out in big red letters. Call. Recalling what he just saw, Lucci's eyes became more solemn. The mission must be carried out immediately, so now, we have to set off immediately. He said in a deep voice to the players in front of him. They've been on Pluton's stealth mission for years, and they've developed a deep friendship, whether it's wearing a mask or camaraderie among colleagues. Roach, I really don't want anyone in this group to die. Even if this is the situation they have to face in this job. Then let's set off immediately, and come back in a hurry after solving the target. Speaking of which, the work at hand is not over yet. I also have a screw to hit. It's really distressing to be suddenly interrupted by such a task. A group of people muttered in a low voice and began to change their clothes. Khalifa adjusted her glasses and seemed a little silent. From Roach's dignified face, she realized that it was not good. Perhaps, this task will be more difficult than they imagined. Lucci didn't say much. About Jong L's intelligence, no one else knew about Jong L except him. Marine's former admiral, a highly secretive figure, was able to get such an order to resolve it. Advertisement and, regardless of success or failure. It means that the purpose is only to let them act as outposts to test the strength of this target. A chess piece? Lucci sneered inside. A touch of anger rose from the depths of his body, but it also made his face even colder. A team of CP9s was dispatched to deal with a Marine ex-admiral. Although there is pressure, with our strength, there is not necessarily no chance. Eyes flickering, Lucci thought in his heart. Taking this opportunity, he can also make a very clear judgment. That is, how far is it from the top of the world? Time passed, and it was already evening. A half-round red sunset hung on the sea level, reflecting the red seawater in the distance, and a few seagulls flashed their wings and passed from the front. The sea breeze was blowing, making people want to hum in comfort. What a wonderful, beautiful sunset photo. Is the boss going to Mobu Town? It's a gathering place for pirates, and they are all ferocious guys. Almost all the newcomers who come to this sea from the 4 seas will gather on that island. Foxy pursed his lips in admiration. It's a mix of fish and dragons, and there are all kinds of guys, even. Speaking of which, he suddenly lowered his voice and whispered. I also heard news that there is a big man in New World who also extended his power to that island. It secretly controls some forces in the Dark World. There are already many pirates, all of whom have taken refuge in that lord. Hearing this, Jong L raised his eyebrows and said with interest, Oh, then do you know who it is? Foxy shook his head. I don't know. A pirate like me might be able to show some prestige in the first half of the Grand Line, but when I go to New World, I'm a cannon fodder, and I won't survive a day. It's even less clear for such a big man. I only know the 4 emperors of the Megatron world. Jong L laughed. You know yourself very well. Hey, if you want to survive, the most important thing is to have a clear cognition. That's why I will surrender to your hockey without hesitation in the face of the boss. Foxy laughed. Suddenly, a grimace came over and looked at Foxy, causing his laughter to stop abruptly, fine sweat oozing from his forehead. Magic Valley Town, there's the power of Flamingo. Crocodile said in a low voice. Flamingo? Advertisement? Jong L was stunned for a moment, then laughed. I heard a familiar name. Crocodile was startled. You know him? Jong L shook his head, but seemed a little silent. After a while, he sighed softly. I know his father. That's a very likable guy. After a pause, he looked at the sunset ahead. Suddenly I miss him. Crocodile was even more surprised. The man in front of him knew Flamingo's father? Donkey Ode Hanagu, my friend, I didn't even give you a good ride. A slight voice came out of Jong L's mouth. Crocodile's whole body froze, and the pupils under the mask suddenly shrank, shocking at this moment. Holy. With holy in the name, Crocodile is naturally clear about this meaning. That guy turned out to be celestial dragons. Taking a long breath, Crocodile whispered. Celestial dragons? Jong L heard it, and he chuckled lightly. Celestial dragons are people too. This is also the theory that Huo Minggu adheres to. It is precisely because of this that the two became friends after an occasional encounter and tried to work towards a common dream. But this sentence made Crocodile and Foxy beside him tremble, looking at him in shock. In this class clear and strict world, such a mundane sentence is extremely powerful. It is no different from the phrase that Chen Sheng and Wu Guang shouted during the uprising, a prince and a general, I would rather have a seed. Night fell quickly, and the speed of the ship moving forward quietly slowed down. On the dark sea, occasionally a few swimming fish jumped out of the water, making a thumping sound. As the night fell, the sky was getting darker, and there was a slight snoring sound from the Foxy next to the warship. A small lonely boat, taking advantage of the night, is slowly approaching. Vaguely visible, there are 7 hazy figures standing on the bow and stern. Chilling air quietly permeated the sea. The Cp9 members who had been chasing after a day, finally arrived at this moment. Chapter 13 Night attack. The sea surface fluctuated, and the faint ripples spread to the surroundings. The fish stuck his head out and looked at the group of people curiously by the silver light on the water. The half moon is obscured by dark clouds, and the light at night is not bright. It's coming soon, get ready. Staring at the warships on the sea ahead, Lucci said solemnly. Kaku, Bluno, Khalifa and others were slightly startled, looking at the warships and pirate ships ahead. Intelligence shows that the target is on the warship. He was accompanied by a mysterious man with a grimace mask who could not identify his identity, and Foxy, the pirate Silver Fox who received a bounty of 24 million. Khalifa whispered. Since the world government dispatched them on a mission, and it was quite urgent, and even had to put down the hidden operation first, it would definitely give relatively detailed information. At the same time, it is also said that Jong L has been stared at by some eyes in the dark after he appeared from Impel down. Prepare for action. Lucci whispered. The lonely boat slowly moved forward and swayed the seawater, and it was very close to the warship in front. After a pause, Lucci looked up again, slowly panning from the dark clouds, the half moon that was about to walk out. Be careful, if you find that you are invincible, retreat immediately. The enemy is. Having said that, Lucci stopped abruptly. As far as you are concerned, in the face of this goal, there is no shame in running away. Kaku and the others froze, they were all dignified, and it was not easy for Lucci to feel troublesome. In the next second, Gujo shook slightly and the 7 figures on it disappeared. Shoo, figures flickered quickly in the air, and in a blink of an eye, they had reached the Foxy, but they did not make a sound. With the help of the masts and ropes on the ship, Lucci and the others changed their shapes again, and they were already on the warship in a blink of an eye. Shish. The figure flickered, and the deck of the warship, which was originally empty, was already full of figures. Find the target. The dove on Lucci's shoulder cooed. Immediately, Bluno, Kaku and the others all took action. All were cautious, keeping noises to a minimum while walking to avoid alerting each other. This was an assassination mission, as well as a sneak attack mission, not an open and above-mentioned challenge. It is undoubtedly the safest to be able to kill the other party unknowingly without attracting the other party's attention. Just as the Cp9 squad moves. In the cabin bedroom, Jong L's eyes suddenly opened. Advertisement, interesting. The corners of his mouth twitched and he got off the bed. I didn't look for you, but came to me first, at the same time, in another room. Crocodile got out of bed expressionlessly, grabbed the grimace mask beside him, and walked towards the door. Outside, Kaku tiptoed to the door of a bedroom, held his breath slightly, and was about to open the door lock. Suddenly, the door slammed open. As soon as he was wearing crocodile pajamas, the figure of the grimace mask immediately caught his eye. Discover the enemy. Kaku snorted lowly and swept back quickly. Just as he retreated, a golden hook whizzed past, glaring coldly in the moonlight. It's very fast, Crocodile sneered. On the other side, Jong L opened the door, and what caught his eye was a tall, slender-legged woman wearing high heels and golden eyes, who looked intellectual and mature. This beauty. It is very impolite to come to the door without the owner's consent. Jong L laughed. Then how do you expect me to be polite? Khalifa smiled charmingly, but his subordinates were not slow at all. he raised his right foot and stabbed it fiercely towards his neck. The root of the high heels revealed a sharp weapon glowing with Morahan's light. Shish. At this moment, the air was broken. Jong Lu's eyes narrowed slightly, and he grabbed the calf that had been stretched out in front of him. The sharp weapon on the high heels also stopped there. Tick. Green venom dripped onto the deck, making a clear sound. It's too dangerous to carry something like this on your body. With a sudden force on his right hand, Jong Lu grinned. Khalifa's face changed. She felt a sharp pain in her calf, her waist twisted, and her other foot flew out. Jong Lu let go and ducked the blow. The strong wind howled, and a sharp slash slashed the door behind him with a sword mark. When he looked up, there were 7 more figures in front of him, all of them looking at him solemnly. Kill them all. Advertisement Crocodile was wearing crocodile pajamas. His face was very ugly, and his eyes were even more frosty. He just slept soundly. He lifted his left hand slightly, and wisps of sand began to float out in an instant. Go back and continue to sleep, leave it to me here. After all, your identity has not yet been exposed at will. But at this moment, Jong Lu spoke up. He moved, his neck twisted from side to side, making a rattling sound. I didn't expect that intelligence personnel from the world government would be so interested in me. Hearing these words, Crocodile was startled and looked at the people in front of him again. People from the world government? Jong Lu nodded and looked at the strange yet familiar faces in front of him. Cp9 actually set off all, and in the middle of the night, quietly touched his boat. This scene was really unexpected. After all, in his consciousness, these guys should be lurking in the 7 waters at the moment, plotting Pluton's design drawings. Some guys really don't want to let me go. Sighing softly, Jong Lu's eyes became cold. Crocodile lowered his left hand and his eyes became serious. This group of people in front of them, with such an aura, is indeed quite impressive, and this is the first time he has seen people from the world government. The world only knows that there are many strong men in the Marines, and they frighten the sea, but they don't know what kind of masters there will be in the world government. But as long as you think about it with your head, you will be clear that the world government, which controls more than 300 countries, must also have extremely powerful characters under its command. You guys should be Cp9, right? Jong Lu glanced around, his eyes fixed on the figure of a white dove standing on one of the shoulders. That be ********** D of Spandam is alive and well. Hearing this, Cp9's faces were slightly shocked. They knew very well that their identity was the biggest secret in the world. In theory, it is impossible for others to know their identities except for the superiors in the CP system. But this person has so accurately stated their affiliation group and direct supervisor. Tell me, come here, what do you guys who just came out to experience, what do you want to do? Jong Lu said lightly. Crocodile stood aside and swept away quietly. After knowing the identity of the other party, he paid more attention to hiding himself. If the people of the world government are exposed, it will be more troublesome. Call. The sea breeze blew lightly, blowing the robes of everyone present. After a long while, Rob Lucci looked at Jong Lu solemnly and spoke. There is only one reason why the CP organization is dispatched. Chapter 14 completely crushed. The atmosphere suddenly became condensed and tense. Although Rob Lucci did not say it, the meaning of it was already very clear. What is the significance of the Cp9 organization? There are only tasks, solve the troubles and problems in the tasks. At this moment, Jong Lu is undoubtedly the trouble. Is that so? Slowly raising his head, Jong Lu had a smile on his face, but his eyes were cold. Call. The sea breeze suddenly became urgent, and a terrifying breath rose rapidly at this moment. The members of the Cp9 team headed by Lucci were all horrified. Action. Suddenly, Rob Lucci shouted. In an instant, all 7 figures burst out. The first one to rush up was Jabra. After a few jumps, people were already in front of Jong Lu. Shave. The air vibrated, the wind surged in front of Jong Lu, and a very oppressive breath suddenly hit. Ha ha. Grinning suddenly, a vaguely crazy smile appeared on Jong Lu's face. The little eagles who just fluttered their wings and jumped off the cliff, let me see if you have learned to fly. Jabra's face was cold, and he was in the air, slashing down with his right foot. Tempest kick. Buzz. The sharp slash instantly slashed towards Jong Lu. The latter raised his head, with his right arm over his head. Boom. A dull voice came out, and there was a crack on the deck of the warship, as well as flying dust. But Jong Lu was unharmed. Seeing this scene, Jabra's pupils shrank, and the rest of Cp9 members were shocked. The powerful Tempest kick was actually blocked by the opponent's body. You don't have time for shock, boy, Jong Lu grinned. 6 style things, I played at the peak 20 years ago. As soon as the voice fell, his figure suddenly distorted and disappeared. What? Jabra was shocked and lost Jong Lu's figure in front of his eyes. Behind you, Advertisement Khalifa shouted, and she was shocked. At the moment, her right calf was still burning hot. Looking down, a handprint was clearly visible, and it had turned blue. This man almost smashed her calf bone just by grabbing it casually. What kind of power is this? Jabra turned back suddenly, and saw a huge palm, fanning towards him. Whirring. The gust of wind whistled in his ears, and the air pressure made his face agitate, and a braid of black hair fluttered straight to one side. Are you kidding me? The opponent actually used a slap? Snapped. Then, in the next second, in the quiet night sky, loud slaps shattered the tranquility. In another room, Foxy, who was snoring, was woken up suddenly. CP9 members, at this moment, their faces are ugly, and their eyes are extremely dignified. Jabra, like a cannonball, was slapped directly from the warship by this slap, and fell into the sea with a thud. Live or die, however, the few teeth that flew out of the air were clearly visible, and they were all embedded in the ship's extension or on the mast. From this, it can be seen how terrifying the strength contained in this slap is. Next, it's your turn, Jong L grinned grimly. Be careful, if you don't pay attention, you will die. The voice sounded, the first second was blurry, but the next second was close to the ear. At the same time, the violent, domineering, trembling aura also swept the sky and covered the earth. Bluno. Khalifa shouted, reminding, covering her mouth subconsciously. She didn't want to see what happened next. The battle had only been going on for a few minutes, but they were already facing a desperate situation. Who was the guy in front of him? Bluno was shocked. He didn't turn around, because the other party rushed directly in front of him, his pupils contracted, and he roared violently. Iron body. At this moment, the muscles and skin of the whole body were all shaking, becoming as hard as steel and integrated. This is the strongest defensive skill in the 6 styles, and it can resist even bullets and artillery fire. However, when he looked up, he saw the mocking and indifferent smile in the other's eyes. Iron body? My strength is that even steel can be torn apart. The words that made Bluno's heart tremble sounded, and a big hand had already pressed on his face, and 5 fingers, like a steel hoop, pressed 5 streaks on his face in an instant. Then, violent power erupted in an instant. Bluno was shocked, his eyes turned white, and blood poured from his nostrils and mouth. Boom! Jong L's big hand pressed forward, and Bluno lay down straight toward the rear deck. Advertisement, crack. The deck was shattered, and the Bluno was embedded in the hull and lost consciousness. Hey, are you kidding me? Kaku's pupils shrank, his heart trembled. Looking at the man in front of him, he was already terrified. You must know that those who can become CP9s have experienced extremely cruel training, experienced countless battles, and were only forged by blood, the most powerful single combat power. But in front of this man, it was like a piece of paper. It seems like a simple action, but it easily kills their companions in seconds. Who is this guy? Lucci. Khalifa trembled. Such a mission goal is simply not something they can deal with at this time, it is simply a complete crushing. Rob Lucci's lips moved, but he didn't say anything. Let's go together, facing such a guy, rushing up alone will only allow us to be broken one by one. Taking a deep breath, his body moved, and he was the first to rush up. Kaku and others gritted their teeth, and their bodies swayed. Shave. At this moment, the remaining 5 people all moved, surrounded and attacked Jong L from all directions. Ha, come on. Let me teach you a group of misguided, ignorant guys, a lesson. Jong L laughed. His body turned, and his right foot suddenly kicked to the side. Fukuru, who happened to appear there, looked stunned, and then said, Zag Baba, it's over. Boom. This kick hit his belly, and Fukuru flew out like a ball and fell into the sea with a thud. At the same time, Kaku's Tempest kick has also been severely hacked. Jong L twisted his waist, laughed loudly, and was greeted by the same Tempest kick. Boom. Kaku's slash was directly shattered, the whole body shook violently, and he vomited blood and flew out. Others saw their companions, and they fell down again almost in an instant. They were shocked and desperate. Rob Lucci. At this moment, Jong L suddenly spoke. Raising his hand to hold it, Khalifa's kicked left leg can even feel the delicate and smooth skin of the opponent. I appreciate you all. Perhaps, you can consider another way. Rob Lucci was stunned when he heard the words, and the next second, his figure rushed forward, his right finger stabbed out, and went straight to Jong L. Finger pistol. Huan Lien, Chapter 15 Madman, boom. At this moment, the air was pierced by sharp fingers, and then countless phantoms roared out, pouring forward like a torrential rain. Jong L's eyes flashed, and his figure became erratic at this moment. The whole person is like a catkin blowing in the wind, twisting into a phantom, swaying from side to side, dodging between the fingers that are constantly poking out. Paper arts. Lucci was shocked, and recognized that the other party was using the tricks in the 6 styles. Taking a deep breath, he gritted his teeth sharply, increasing the frequency output. At the same time, Khalifa on the other side, Kaku who got up again, and Kumadori rushed over with a shout. Jong L turned his head, a cold light flashed in his eyes, and stared at the 3 of them. In the air, a domineering aura suddenly oscillated and swept out. The 3 people who rushed up suddenly stiffened at this moment, and they stopped there abruptly. I can't move. My whole body is shaking, what's going on? Fear comes from instinct, and the fear between the souls swept the whole body. This guy, who is so holy. The 3 of them trembled and stood not far from Jong L, but no matter what, they couldn't take a step forward. Deterrence. They were completely intimidated by the momentum of each other's body. Turning his head and looking at Rob Lucci in front of him again, Jong L grinned. Let me see your measurements, Rob Lucci. Then, his fist shook, and the air was shattered at this moment, waving toward the front. Lucci's pupils shrank, his figure flickered again and again, his feet stepped on the void, and several ripples appeared, avoiding the punch. Immediately after that, the right leg is raised high, and then the slash is fierce. I also want to see what kind of strength the predecessor admiral, who is classified as S-class secret, has. A low voice came out, the air was pierced, and a powerful slash roared out. What? Jong L grinned and raised his head with a smile in his eyes. Its right foot is raised, and it is also kicked out. Boom. The airwaves rolled and surged around, and Rob Lucci's Tempest kick was scattered. The next moment, Jong L took a step forward, and his figure suddenly disappeared in a twist. Disappeared? No, it's shaving. Roach's pupils contracted, and his heart was shocked. Being able to use shaving to such a state with ease, without even being able to detect his body shape, the opponent's 6 forms have obviously reached a very high level. This is the first time he has seen such a 6-style powerhouse. Advertisement. Behind you. Jong L made a sound and grabbed his head with a big hand. His height is not top-notch among pirates, but he is more than 2 meters tall, which is not much different from Lucci. The latter heard the sound, turned around quickly, stepped on the ground with both feet, quickly backed away, and opened the distance. Then, breathing lightly, sweating on his forehead, his eyes were even more solemn. Unprecedented enemy. Admiral-level combat power, just a simple action, can give him a mountain-like sense of terrifying oppression. The rhythm of the battle may not be intense, but the psychological pressure is enormous. How? Rob Lucci, in the CP organization, you are known as the strongest and most ruthless killing weapon in history, the strongest in 800 years. Is that only the strength? Jong L's eyes flashed and he said lightly. For Rob Lucci, his heart is naturally very appreciative. This guy's talent is quite high, and his potential is infinite. At the same time, he also has a cold heart, advocating necessary evil, and pursuing dark justice. How big is the difference? The distance between me and Admiral. Lucci said softly in his heart. Up to this point, the opponent had not exerted all his strength, and it was as easy as swatting a fly to deal with the attack of the entire Cp9 team. As expected of a dangerous person classified as an S-class secret. At the same time, he is also very interested in what Jong L did back then. Such a former Marine Admiral was hidden from the world. Come on, Rob Lucci. Look at how much damage you can do to me with your current strength. Jong L hooked his hand. Rob Lucci's eyes were suddenly sharp, his body leaned forward suddenly, and the whole person was pulled into a phantom, and he was in front of Jong L all of a sudden. Tempest kick. Jong L's eyes were bright, his fingers spread out, and he directly faced the slash caused by Tempest kick. Boom. The airwaves scattered, and the Tempest kick slash was shattered. He strode forward, approaching Lucci. The latter was under great pressure, and his hands suddenly stretched out at the same time, clenched into fists, and pressed together. Profound truth. 6 Kings Spear. Faced with Jong L, who was already close at hand after 3 steps, Lucci did not hesitate to directly activate his strongest profound meaning. Boom. The powerful impact shot out in an instant, and the void seemed to collapse at this moment. The strong wind and violent pressure swept across Jong L's face. Just as the shotgun was about to approach, Jong L's head turned slightly to the side. Call out. Advertisement. This 6 King Spear was easily dodged. Escaped. What a joke, this is Lucci's strongest trick. It's like he predicted Lucci's actions. Kaku and the others on the side were shocked and unbelievable. Meanwhile, Rob Lucci has also been silent. In the face of the enemy who is close in front of him, with a distance of less than 1 meter, his strongest moves are easily dodged. It was like a silent mockery of him. The gap between the two sides is like a dimension. Desperate? Lucci, don't you want to beat me? At this moment, Jong L spoke again. Rob Lucci's eyes narrowed, and the next second, his figure burst out again, and finger pistol stabbed out at Jong L. However, just like the previous 6 Kings Spear, the opponent easily avoided every attack, as if he had anticipated his movements in advance and reacted accordingly. Totally miss. Not only Kaku and others realized this, Rob Lucci also found it, and his heart was heavy. Despair. In this short life, from his birth to the present, it was the first time he was so desperate. Your strength, like your life, goes astray, Rob Lucci. Jong L's voice sounded again. Lucci gritted his teeth, shouted loudly, and attacked frantically again. He does not allow others to judge his life so easily. But still can't hit. Not even once. The finger pistol, which is as fast as a torrential rain, can't even touch the opponent's clothes. Kakuzu. I can change your life and make you stronger. Perhaps you can consider joining my subordinates. Hearing this, Rob Lucci was shocked. Change his life and make him stronger. What happened to this man, or what kind of secrets he was hiding? Although he has admiral-level combat power, his reputation is not obvious, and he is also concerned and monitored by the world government. Who is he? What to do? The world government can't give you a future. Only by coming under my command can you realize your potential to the ultimate. When the voice came, Rob Lucci suddenly found that the man's flashing figure in front of him suddenly stopped. Puff puff puff. In an instant, the finger pistol stabbed deep into the opponent's body. Madman. After Lucci was stunned, his pupils contracted. Chapter 16 let the bullets fly for a while. Tick. Blood dripped, and the deck under his feet was soon dyed red. Everyone on the boat, at this moment, their eyes flickered and their hearts were shocked. It hit. But you seem surprised. Jong L grinned. The smile on Rob Lucci's face seemed a little weird and gloomy. Some people will face a fierce attack, but they will not dodge and hurt themselves. The blood is warm, and even the touch of flesh and blood in the opponent's body is real. Puff. Rob Lucci pulled out his fingers, took a few steps back, and looked up at each other. What's the meaning? Jong L grinned and laughed. What do you mean? It's very simple, because even if you hit me. Between the words, the blood hole on his body has begun to heal quickly, and it has disappeared in the blink of an eye, and no trace can be seen again. It won't do me any harm either. Rob Lucci's pupils contracted, and he looked at Zhang Lu in shock. For a while he was speechless. It really hit the opponent's wound, but it still didn't cause any damage. With your strength, whether it is compared to me or the world, it is like a drop of water in this blue sea. Insignificant, unremarkable. In the next second, a gust of wind suddenly hit his face in front of him, and a fist hit his abdomen hard. Boom! The powerful force came out through the body, causing the air behind it to tremble, and a gust of wind gusted up. When you see the vastness of the world and the vastness of the world, you will have a clear understanding of yourself. Know what you really need. Rob Lucci was shocked, his waist bent, and he fell to his knees with a thud, blood spurting from the corners of his mouth. He couldn't react to this blow at all, so naturally he couldn't avoid it. Today, I'll let you go for a while. See you next time. I hope you will consider the proposal I said clearly. Zhang Lu retracted his fist and said softly. The members of the Cp9 team heard all of them, and their hearts were slightly shocked, and they were a little stunned. Does this mean you want to let them go? Why? Advertisement? Rob Lucci resisted the gushing blood and asked aloud. I appreciate you all and look forward to working with you all. Zhang Lu said. After a pause, he seemed to remember something. By the way, bring a word to your superiors for me. Soon, when I'm free, I'll visit him. Lucci was silent, and he looked deeply at the man in front of him. Powerful, mysterious, and weird, even maddening. Obviously have the strength to crush and kill them all, but let them go, and say the words that want to take them. Without a doubt, it was a favor. Thank you, Kaku said with a trembling voice. He can almost say tonight that he has experienced a shadow that is unspeakable in his life. Death is only one step away. Several people flickered and immediately disappeared from the warship. After a while, the sea breeze blew, and the night sky became quiet again. Go on, rest. Zhang Lu laughed. Are they your target? Crocodile's eyes flickered and asked curiously. At the same time, he also felt extremely jealous and in awe of Zhang Lu's strength. Cp9 is definitely not a weakling, at least, facing the guy with pigeons on his shoulders, even he will feel extremely difficult. But facing the man in front of him, he was still easily crushed. How strong is this guy? A team with great potential, with a little bit of polish, they'll shock the world. It's just the wrong way, Zhang Lu said softly. The CP team headed by Rob Lucci is absolutely amazing. He knew better that the gang would lose the Enies lobby battle soon after. Then, he got into huge trouble and was hunted down by the world government personnel. But 2 years later, Rob Lucci will attack the Jedi and come back again, and in a higher position. This also shows that this man already has more powerful strength at that time. Then you shouldn't let them go, Crocodile said in a low voice. Let the bullet fly for a while, and we may have a bigger harvest. Zhang Lu's eyes flashed slightly, and he said with a light smile. He is waiting for this team to eat devil fruit, and at that moment, he will undoubtedly have more powerful power. Advertisement at that time, he just needs to wait quietly, and then pick the fruit of victory, it will be enough. Then, Zhang Lu turned around and entered the cabin. The trouble is solved, and you can have a good sleep. Looking at the back of him leaving, the eyes under Crocodile's grimace mask kept flickering. Looking at the sea in front of him and the ship that was sailing away quickly, he slowly exhaled. What the hell are you going to do? This recruiting attitude is definitely not something a Marine should do. It is almost certain that Zhang Lu has unimaginable ambitions. 20 years ago, Shu Yi was established. 20 years later, he subdued him and Impel down. After he came out, he was recruiting troops again. Letting go of the night raiding Cp9 team, and deliberately going to meet the attack of the leader of the other party, are all showing goodwill. But at the same time, they suppressed and deterred the opponent with their powerful strength. Thunder means and kindness are displayed at the same time, which is an absolute solicitation. It is conceivable that on ordinary people, once there is a problem, when Zhang Lu appears, he will definitely be brought in without hindrance. Also, you seem to know something, a secret that is hard for ordinary people to discover. Muttering, Crocodile's eyes darkened. Zhang Lu's goal is very clear. Whoever he chooses and who he will bring to his command has a very precise direction. It's like, they know each other very well. This man definitely has a secret that is hard for outsiders to know. At the same time, in the dark of night, a lonely boat was swinging out of the water and quickly heading towards the capital of Seven Waters. The ship was silent, and the entire Cp9 team was silent. The brief battle, however, destroyed their previous self-confidence and pride. The figure of that man was completely indelible in his mind at this moment. Lucci, who is he? Khalifa took a deep breath, looked down at his right calf, and finally couldn't help but ask. Clearly visible traces of purple and cyan, and the shape of 5 fingers and palms are very obvious. This is the mark that the man left on his body. I still can't say it. In this mission, we have obviously become pawns. A guy like that, they must know that we are not opponents. Kaku gritted his teeth and roared. The aura that penetrated deep into the soul was awe-inspiring, and the fear that it generated was still unable to dissipate at this moment. Lucci, compared to those bad guys, our goal this time seems to be more friendly to us. Does he want to recruit us? Jabra said solemnly. Rob Lucci sat there, listening to the words of his companions, before raising his head after a long while. Chapter 17 Magic Valley Town. This is an S-class secret. Speak out, and you may be in unimaginable danger. After a pause, he said seriously, "Are you sure you want me to tell you?" The answer is, of course, yes. In the face of such a man, everyone present was deeply shocked, and even left a shadow. It would be so sad if they didn't even know the identity of the other party. His name is Jong L. He is Marine's ex-admiral, Day Tiger. Now that you know his identity, then make a note of the name. As for his solicitation, taking a breath, Rob Lucci's eyes change. Our current status is still the CP staff of the world government. Please don't think about it too much, but it's hard to say how much his words can play a role. Whether it was Khalifa or Jabra and others, their eyes flashed slightly at this time. It is almost natural to succumb to the strong, especially in a realistic and cruel organization like CP, where the weak eat the strong, and under the stronger can we survive more safely. What's more, this strong man has already released goodwill to them. Even Rob Lucci was silent at this moment, thinking about what the man said in his mind. In weighing and making judgments, strength and future? After a while, he looked up at the sparkling sea in front of him and muttered. Although the world government will also train them, and teach them the 6 forms, and conduct all kinds of cruel training, however, more powerful tricks are bound to be hidden. At their level, they can't get in touch at all, and, once something happens, the Cp9 team is just like this time, no different from cannon fodder. In other words, in the eyes of the higher level upper classes, they are just a group of tools that can be used, sacrificed, and discarded at any time. Marine's ex-admiral, Day Tiger, his eyes flickered, and Rob Lucci was also thoughtful. What is your purpose? The decision is not so good, as he said, at least the current status is still a member of Cp9. Before learning more about Jong L, Rob Lucci did not intend to accept the other party's solicitation easily. This is a great risk for both him and the Cp9 team. Advertisement vaguely, he could feel that there was a great secret and danger between that man and the world government. See you soon. Whispering softly, Rob Lucci closed his eyes. That simple punch, but seriously injured, also represented the man's terrifying power. Physical skills, strength, and no matter how you attack, multiple wounds will heal extremely quickly. Such a guy is simply an immune-to-death monster. He will definitely shock the whole world in the future. The sea water fluctuated slightly, and the lonely boat gradually drifted away. Time passed, and life on the sea was dull and boring. Fortunately, Jong L's team gradually expanded. After Foxy and his crew, the place became lively. As they got along with each other, Foxy's group also realized that the new boss was not some kind of cruel and evil guy. On the contrary, they are very easy to get along with, have a gentle attitude, do not have a domineering momentum, and often tell them many unheard stories. What, boss, you said that Sky Island really exists? How can the island be suspended above 10,000 meters in the sky? This is simply amazing. I really want to go and see. Will a beautiful angel with wings appear? New World. Is there a giant elephant that can move? The elephant has an island on its back. Wow, Mr. Jong L, you know a lot. A group of Foxy's pirates, all jumping up and down, surrounded Jong L these days, and kept begging him to tell stories. When the two sides are familiar with each other, the distance between them disappears and they become intimate. During the exchange, they can also quickly close their relationship. In the future, I will show you all. Next, we will soon see the magic of Sky Island. Exactly, I have one thing to do when I go there. Jong L said with a chuckle. Compared with the solemn atmosphere on board, he prefers the relaxation at this time. Wow, Sky Island. Can you really go? That's 10,000 meters above the sky. Angel, White Island, will there be a kingdom of heaven, will there be a god? Everyone was excited. They didn't think Jong L was bragging. Such a strong man would definitely not talk nonsense. Of course, if such bizarre remarks appeared in another population, they would definitely sneer and ridicule unscrupulously. Sky Island. Advertisement Crocodile, wearing a grimace mask, stood quietly in front of the rudder, his eyes lit up. In the blink of an eye, 7 days have passed. Boss, our ship will soon arrive at Magic Valley Town. Foxy held the telescope, looked at the sea ahead, and said happily. The purpose of this trip has finally arrived, and the supplies on board can be replenished again. More importantly, Jong L said, Sky Island can be accessed from here. This is undoubtedly an exciting thing. Really? That's really good news. Jong L, who was sitting on the beach chair, heard the words, put down the bounty in his hand, and said with a smile. Crocodile stood by and saw the straw hat on the reward, his pupils shrank. Monkey D. Luffy. A bounty of 100 million Baileys. Obviously, it was because of defeating him that the bounty of that kid was raised to such a level. According to the sailing time, there is a high chance of meeting that kid on this island. Crocodile's eyes flashed, and he took a deep breath. Marine's warships are specially made, and they are familiar with the first half of the voyage, so they are much faster than newcomers in speed. If there is a chance, he naturally wants to wash away this shame. The dignified Shichibukai was defeated by the fledgling boy. This fact made him intolerable. The ship slowly docked at the port of Magic Valley Town 2 hours later. Foxy and the others shouted, jumped off the boat happily, and ran towards the island. Jong L and Crocodile were the last to disembark, and the boat was guarded by the previously injured Hamburg and other crew members. Looking at the lively street ahead, vendors shouted, scolded people, all kinds of noisy voices, and pedestrians of all kinds were in an endless stream. What a lively town. Jong L laughed. This is the island with the most pirates in the first half, and there are all kinds of guys. Of course, it's also the most troublesome place. Crocodile said solemnly. Fighting and killing people in the street are simply normal things here. The two quickly entered the town. The place where the pirates gathered, the tavern was naturally the most, and there was a strong smell of spirits almost everywhere. Looking around, Jong L smiled. So, where's the clue to the Doflamingo guy? Advertisement Chapter 18 The Man Who Almost Killed Me. Don Quixote Doflamingo. This name is now famous in the world, one of Shichibukai and the king of New World Dressrosa. At the same time, his identity in the dark made countless people fear and tremble. It can be said that to many people in the world, Doflamingo is a nightmare, a dangerous, cruel, crazy evil guy. But for Jong L, the identity of the other party is also very simple. His close friend, Nocturne number 03, son of Don Quixote Hinagu. This also means that the other party has the qualification to inherit the virtual night number. Doflamingo. Crocodile beside him heard his name, his eyes narrowed. There is also a subtle connection between him and Doflamingo, and even the two have made some secret deals. Crocodile knew something about his person and strength, and he was also afraid of him. The son of the old friend, you should take a look at him. Jong L smiled lightly. I vaguely remember that he also hugged Huo Mingu's two sons back then. Doflamingo's attitude is icy, and Corzone's temperament escapes gentleness. It's just that 20 years have passed, and I don't know what happened to the other party now. They were on the streets of Magic Valley Town, but they didn't notice that a group of people was walking in an alley behind them. The man headed is rough in appearance, with a few teeth missing in his mouth. He has a burly stature, fluffy black hair, and a headscarf. He wears different styles of jewelry rings on his hands and fingers, and a flintlock gun on his left waist, with rum. Shaking his body, he walked towards here with a smile on his face. Thief, ha 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 ha, what a lively place, and the rum here is also very strong. The man said with a laugh. Behind him, 4 people of different shapes followed, all with smiles on their faces. But the moment he walked out of the alley and came to the street, the man in the lead saw the back of Jong L walking in front at a glance. Wait, who is that figure? His forward footsteps suddenly stopped, the smile on his face disappeared suddenly, and his pupils shrank suddenly. What's wrong? Teach, Fan Oka's voice came from behind, with obvious doubts. Can't be wrong, it's definitely that man, how could he still be alive? Blackbeard Marshal Teach's face changed, and fine sweat was oozing from his forehead. In the next second, his figure suddenly swayed, disappeared from the street, and entered the alley. At the same time, Jong L, who was walking in front, felt a gaze and turned his head suddenly. Advertisement The streets were crowded with people, and he didn't notice anything unusual. With a strange look in his eyes, Jong L glanced around, still unaware of the guy who peeked at him, and just turned his head again. In the alley, the 4 of Fan Oka looked at the captain who was clinging to the wall, his body seemed to be softened, with a strange look on his face. What the hell happened to you? Who is that man? Lafitte asked aloud. Obviously, the captain made this strange behavior when he saw a person who shocked him. That guy is still alive. I thought he had already died in that big incident, but he is still alive. Damn, how could he still be alive? How could he still be alive? Blackbeard Marshal Teach kept talking, with fear in his eyes and deep fear. Who the hell is he? Teach, with your character, you won't be like this for no reason. Fan Oka shouted in a deep voice. He realized that it was not good. The guy who can make his own captain behave like this is probably not an ordinary role. Call. Taking a deep breath, Marshal Teach calmed down before spitting out a name with his eyes changing. Jong L, Marine Admiral, Day Tiger Jong L. Slowly raising his head, he collided with the eyes of the 4 crew members in front of him, his tone dignified and trembling. A man who nearly killed me once. In the short words, Jean Van Oka, Lafitte, Poison Q, and Giza's badgers suddenly changed their expressions, and their pupils shrunk to a slit. The man who nearly killed the captain. Why has such a man never had his name in the world? There is no such guy in the Marine either, Lafitte said suspiciously. That's because you didn't know 20 years ago. Blackbeard sighed softly, and after saying this, he was suddenly stunned, and then a distorted smile appeared on his face. Thief, ha 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 ha. Then he laughed. Yeah, 20 years ago. It's been 20 years now. Advertisement? I'm not that weak, powerless boy anymore. After spitting out these words, Marshal Teach's eyes became fierce, and his murderous intent was not concealed at all. A series of weird smiles came from his mouth, and the 4 of Fan Oka looked at each other a few times, but they could only helplessly look at the strange behavior of their captain. It can be seen that the captain has a great shadow on the man. After a while, Blackbeard calmed down. Captain, if you hate him very much, we can take revenge with you and kill that guy. Badgers laughed. It's not the time yet. Also, that guy can't be solved so easily. Blackbeard said. Continue with our plan, if we can catch Straw Hat. From our goal, we can go one step further. After a pause, he said with a solemn expression. But until then, we want to avoid direct contact with that guy. Take a deep breath. Just as I desperately want to kill him, that guy doesn't know why, he always wants to kill me. After saying this, Blackbeard's emotions were very complicated, because he really didn't know why Jong L hated him so much. 20 years ago, he was a mediocre teenage intern on the Whitebeard Pirates, and the guy stared at him to death. And this is also the point of being laughed at by others. On the streets of Magic Valley Town, Jong L and Crocodile paused slightly before they stopped at the door of a tavern. Want a few drinks? Looking into the bar, Jong L suddenly said with a smile. Crocodile was stunned and followed the other side's line of sight. At the bar of the pub, a man with blonde hair was sitting with his back to them, drinking with a glass. While drinking, he said something loudly and arrogantly, and the people next to him were very afraid of this person. Vaguely, he heard a sentence from the noisy voice inside. Bellamy. The big pirate with a bounty of 55 million. What a cruel guy, don't dare to provoke him. Although he didn't know what his boss was thinking, he obviously wouldn't go against the other's wishes. It is good. So, the two walked into the tavern one after the other. Chapter 19 Bellamy. As they entered, the pirates in the tavern all looked up at them. When they saw Jong L and Crocodile, who was covered in a cloak and wearing a grimace mask, they were all taken aback, and then laughed. The guy who hides his head and shows his tail, still wearing a mask in broad daylight. A new face that I haven't seen before, and a new person who doesn't know where it came from. There will be a good show, and someone will definitely take care of them. Various voices sounded in their ears, but Jong L and Crocodile turned a blind eye. Under everyone's eyes, he walked straight to the bar, the empty seat next to the man with the golden-inch head who had his back turned to them. Then, the two of them sat on the left and right, sandwiching the blonde short-haired man in the middle. Boss, 2 glasses of rum. Be strong, thank you. Jong L shouted with a smile, but he didn't realize that the tavern that was noisy a second ago has become silent at this moment. Some people's eyes are shocked, some are joking, and some are fierce. At the same time, the short-haired blonde man sandwiched between them also slammed the glass on the bar, and the corners of his mouth curled into a fierce arc. I'm so sorry, you two. The blonde man suddenly stretched out his hand and embraced Jong L and Crocodile on the left and right. There is someone here. Jong L's face was slightly startled, but then a bright smile appeared on his face, and he turned to look at the man next to him. Blonde hair, with a long scar on his left eye, and a hideous and arrogant smile on his face, it was Bellamy the hyena. The bounty is 55 million, the captain of the Bellamy Pirates, the spring fruit ability. It is also the tragic guy who was killed by Luffy in the original book, and was used by Flamingo 2 years later to be defeated again. Crocodile on the right side, the mask covers his face, no expression can be seen, but it is very clear, there is a cold breath leaking from his body. Obviously, this crocodile doesn't like to be in such close contact with others. What's more, Bellamy's actions at the moment are not friendly. Have you heard of Sky Island? Suddenly, Bellamy heard the man on the left ask with a smile. Sky Island? He was stunned for a moment, and then a cold and mocking smile flashed in his eyes. Do you still believe in fairy tales? Sky Island, it's just a bunch of stupid guys, weaving a trick to trick children. Advertisement saying that, Bellamy's left and right hands stretched out slowly downwards. This stupid question makes me very unhappy, and you guys took my place. Just make me hate you even more. As soon as the words fell, he was ready to reach out and attack these two annoying people. However, in the next second, a big hand appeared on the back of his head, and pressed it on it, causing his whole body to tremble. The man on the left, the smile on his face suddenly disappeared, and his eyes became extremely cold. Sky Island, it's not a fairy tale. Bellamy opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but it was too late. The big hand pressing on the back of the head suddenly exerted force, and the unstoppable and majestic force exploded. With a bang, his head slammed on the bar. A frog like you, who sits and watches the sky, can't see the vastness of the outside world, and is unwilling to believe in things that really exist outside of your own perception. How sad. After a pause, Jong L stood up slowly, grabbed the blonde hair on top of the other's head with his right hand, and lifted it out again. Cough, cough, cough. Bellamy's face was full of blood, blood was spitting from his mouth, and his eyes were full of confusion at this time. He was actually dealt with by others using his own means, which was the way he used to attack these two people. What's even more outrageous is that during this process, his entire body seemed to be fixed, and there was no resistance. Just a B***************. The indifferent voice came into his ears. Bellamy's heart was shocked, and his eyes widened. This sentence reminded him of the scene in front of that man. That man, whom he had always admired, said the same thing when facing each other. Cough cough cough, you, Bellamy wanted to growl angrily. But in the next second, Jong L strode, grabbed his head and slammed into the wall in front of him again. Boom. The entire bar, the wooden roof shook, and the decorations hanging on the walls shook violently. Bellamy's roaring voice was abruptly pressed in his throat, his eyes were scattered, and there were multiple scratches and bruises on his face. Although I don't agree with the so-called dreams that many people in this world insist on. But at least I know how to respect others. The faint voice came into his ears and Bellamy gasped for breath, but he couldn't make any response. Advertisement with 2 simple blows, his head almost exploded. A scum like you is only worthy of lying on the street and lingering. Jong L's voice came out again, and when he threw his right hand, Bellamy was thrown out like a sack. Then, he turned around and returned to the seat just now. Crocodile still sat there quietly, turning a blind eye to everything that happened, and there was a big hole between them. The whole tavern suddenly became quiet. The pirates who saw everything that happened just now, their faces were stiff at this time, and their hearts were full of fear when they looked at the two men with their backs to them. Bellamy's with a bounty of 55 million, it was solved so easily. Who are these two guys? Fear and tension quietly filled the air of the tavern at this moment. There is no doubt that the two Bellamys who were easily dealt with in their eyes, who were extremely difficult and unprovocable, became new objects that must not be provoked. Boom. Some people swallowed their saliva, sweat oozing from their foreheads. "Boss, my wine." At this moment, a voice with a chuckle came out. Standing at the bar, the tavern owner, who was completely stunned, reacted just now. "Ah, good." He poured the wine immediately, while observing the smiling man in front of him. It seemed that this sharp and decisive man seemed to be much easier to get along with than Bellamy. In the tavern, someone started to stand up gently and tiptoe out of the tavern, and as the first one left, the next followed one after another. Jong L and Crocodile didn't care about these people and let them go. The two of them held up their glasses, touched each other, and drank them. There should be a reason to take action against such a gangster, right? Crocodile asked softly. "Ha ha ha, you know me very well, and he is indeed a very wise person." "That's exactly what I like about you." Jong L smiled, and then, he paused lightly and narrowed his eyes. "Wait a while, the person who should come will come." Crocodile put the wine glass on the table and spoke coldly to the boss who was listening with his ears pricked up in front of him. Pour wine. Chapter 20 Conqueror's Collision Magic Valley Town, on the street. Bellamy lay on the ground, panting softly. At this time, not only was his head dizzy, but he felt embarrassed. There were more and more people around him, which also made him angry and ashamed. At the same time, there was also fear. That man will kill me. His heart was trembling, and he was curled up there, looking a little confused for a while. In a courtyard away from here, a serious-looking man hurried in, and after a few cross-examinations, he finally came to a deep room. "Young master, Bellamy was severely injured." Across the door, the man whispered, his tone solemn. He knew very well in his heart that Bellamy might be insignificant to the young master, but he had their mark on him. This incident also represents the shame of the entire family. At the same time, with the temper of the young master, Bellamy will never be spared. "Bellamy." After a long while, a cold and low voice came from the room. "As that be asterisk 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 D. What a shame on me." As the words sounded, the man felt a condensed, extremely oppressive aura. Squeak. The door opened, and a man with sunglasses, a pink coat, cropped trousers, and pointed shoes caught his eye. "Little lord." The man immediately lowered his head, daring not to look directly, and his heart was even more nervous now. Because he knew that the man in front of him not only had a very high status, but also had extremely terrifying strength. "I'm here to make sure that the news from Marine is true. Instead of dealing with little punks like this." A low, icy voice sounded from his ears, and the man passed over him. It was he who knelt in front of me and begged me and made a promise that I gave him a chance to test. But obviously, he didn't cherish it. After a pause, the man's eyes were cold. "Just go have a look. The guy who dares to make trouble on my sight must not be forgiven lightly." After a while, the pressure around him disappeared, and the man who came to report the letter just let out a sigh of relief. When he straightened up, his back was already cold. Such oppression, what a terrible man, as expected of Heavenly Yaksha. The man thought to himself. Yes, the man in front of him is called Heavenly Yaksha, the Sea Rogue, the king of New World Dressrosa, the king of the Dark World Don Quixote Doflamingo. At the same time, its identity on the bright side is one of Shichibukai. In this world, he is definitely a real overlord, and he is also a heroic figure. Advertisement, what's going to happen next? It's so nerve-wracking and looking forward to it. The man muttered, looking out of the yard. It's not far from where Bellamy was beaten, and it'll be there soon. On the other side, at the entrance of the tavern. Bellamy lay there quietly, his head was dizzy, and there was a steady stream of pain, which made him suffocate, and his whole body was sweating. Absolutely concussion. Damn, that guy is too hard. With such two heavy blows, his head almost exploded. All kinds of thoughts came to mind at this moment, and Bellamy even began to recall life. But suddenly, the lively voice in the ear became silent. He was startled and opened his eyes. Then, the pupils shrank suddenly, and the whole body began to tremble slightly. The crowd was quickly separating, making way for a passage. A pair of pointed shoes, cropped trousers, and a pink coat walked over step by step. "Much, Doflamingo," Bellamy's voice was shaking. Soon, the pair of pointed shoes stopped in front of him, and the tall body bent down and looked down at him. After examining for a moment, he suddenly grinned. "Breakthrough. What did I say? Bellamy, you're such a little b asterisk 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 d. You really let me down fast enough." Doflamingo was laughing, but his voice was so cold that he felt hairy. "No, it's not my fault, it's that person." Bellamy shivered. What else did he want to explain? But Doflamingo's foot suddenly lifted and stomped on his head, causing his voice to stop abruptly. "It's your fault that you were weak. If you were strong enough, no matter how bad you are, the person lying here will not be you." The right foot twisted Bellamy's head, and soon, his face was covered with dust. Bellamy struggled in embarrassment and made a painful plea. "Forgive me. Spare me this time." Doflamingo smiled. "Forgive you? This time, there is no reason to grant your wish again." Bellamy. His eyes were suddenly cold, and the right foot that had stepped on Bellamy's face was slowly raised. The people around, some people screamed in horror. Everyone can see that this is to trample Bellamy to death. The people behind Doflamingo were also trembling with fear, but they didn't dare to make any sound. They know very well that this big man can definitely do such a thing. In everyone's eyes, Doflamingo's right foot slowly lifted, then slammed down. Advertisement, but in the next second, Doflamingo's hole shrank suddenly, and Bellamy's expression of fear solidified on his face. A foot appeared 1 centimeter above his nose, firmly blocking the pointed-toed shoe above. Who is it? Bellamy took a deep breath and tried to open his eyes to the man who saved his life. But when he saw it clearly, his body shook and froze there. The one who beat himself badly. Flamingo looked at the foot that was blocking his own, and slowly raised his head. When he saw the familiar face in front of him, his eyes shrank suddenly, and his expression became solemn and serious. After 3 breaths, the corners of his mouth suddenly drew an arc. Breakthrough. I saw an amazing guy. Jong L also looked up at the tall man and grinned at the same time. Ha 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 ha. Having a knife at the weak is not a glorious thing. Have you forgotten? I taught you that when you were a child. The short words made the smile on Flamingo's face freeze, and Crocodile, who had just walked out of the tavern, was also surprised. The relationship between the two in front of him seems to be even more than his previous guess. Jong L. Flamingo said coldly, then what is it that you beat him seriously? Hearing this, Jong L responded with a serious expression, he slandered my dream. Dream? Flamingo froze for a moment, then laughed. Breakthrough. Tears were coming out of his smile. People like you even talk about dreams? It's so funny. His eyes suddenly became gloomy and cold again in the next second, a black-red electric light flashed on his right foot, and a domineering aura burst out from his body. Lift it up, then slam it down hard again. Now, I have to deal with my people, it has nothing to do with you. Jong L had the same hands and feet, a violent hockey burst out from his body, and his right foot flashed an electric light and kicked it suddenly. Boom! The 2 feet collided together, the current surged, and the terrifying domineering atmosphere swept in all directions. Conqueror's collision. Crocodile stood in front of the tavern door, his eyes solemn. Bellamy lay at the foot of the collision between the two, shivering, and a huge shadow was born in her heart. So scary, he'd rather die now. Chapter 21 Jong L Uncle. Breakthrough. Do you have to be against me? There was a flash of light on the Flamingo's sunglasses, and her face was icy cold. There was a hint of anger in his expression, obviously very angry. I just want to crush his head. The gloomy words, spit out from Flamingo's mouth, also made the oppressive breath in the surrounding air even stronger. I have something to talk to you about, Jong L said indifferently, his right foot was like a rock, blocking the opponent's face, making him unable to advance an inch and never fall down. Yes. Flamingo retracted his right foot, his eyes narrowed. Jong L saw the opponent's restraint, and also withdrew his right foot. Call. Bellamy let out a sigh of relief, and there were dense tiny beads of sweat on his blue-purple cheeks. The danger, it seems, left, and he survived. However, in the next second, Bellamy's pupils contracted again. Buzz. The void shook, and Flamingo's sneering laughter came out again. Breakthrough. Do you think it was still 20 years ago? I must do what you say. A domineering terrifying aura rose up, and Conqueror's hockey oscillated forward at this moment, charging straight towards Jong L. Are you going to fight me? Dover? Jong L's face also became gloomy, his eyes widened, Conqueror's hockey collided with each other fiercely. Boom. Zzzzz. In the air, there seems to be an invisible current rustling. The crowd of onlookers who were close by felt a trembling breath at this moment, and they were shaking all over. Quick, let's go. Their war will affect us. Damn, who are these 2 people? I only know one of them, Heavenly Yaksha, one of Shichibukai, Flamingo. What? It's him. In the crowd, the voice of fear came out immediately, and then, one after another figure suddenly turned around and ran. If you don't leave, you will die, someone yelled in horror. Because, I can clearly feel that the terrifying, domineering, and soul-shocking breath in the air is rapidly climbing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Breakthrough. Flamingo grinned. Advertisement. 20 years have passed, Jong L. Father's death, I can vividly remember the education you taught me back then. Like yesterday. There was a smile on his face, but his words were scum of Sen Lang. Do you hate me? Jong L said lightly. Crocodile watched this scene behind him, took a step forward, raised his right hand, the sand and dust on the ground began to roll, and the wind was blowing. But the next second, Jong L raised his hand and Crocodile stopped. Oh, Flamingo tilted his head and gave Crocodile a suspicious look. This guy with a cloak and a grimace mask all over his body made him feel a little familiar. His eyes flashed, the corner of his mouth cracked open, and his right hand suddenly slashed to one side. 5 color strings. The air was cut by invisible lines, and Crocodile, who was standing next to him, also had 5 tiny cracks on his body. But soon, grains of sand poured out, and the 5 cracks healed. Flamingo's pupils contracted, and after staring at Crocodile for a while, he suddenly burst out laughing. Breakthrough. Interesting, really fun. He turned his head sharply and stared at Jong L again. You guy, are you making a comeback? So, has the trial of the new round of numbers started? There were 2 consecutive questions, but no one responded to him. Jong L just stared at him calmly, without showing any expression. Looks like you still lack education, Flamingo. His fists were clenched suddenly, and endless icy rays of light shot out from his eyes. Then let you know, facing me, your situation is no different from 20 years ago. Flamingo also held his breath, and the breath rising from his body became stronger and stronger. The strong wind swept through, and the street had become empty at the moment. Bellamy was unconscious and his eyes were white. He had long since passed out under the onslaught of Conqueror's hockey. Breakthrough. I also really want to know, 20 years have passed, whether your strength has regressed. Doflamingo sneered. As he said that, his hands suddenly stretched back, dozens of thin threads quickly intertwined, and then suddenly waved towards Jong Lu. Super Strike Whip. Like a long whip, it was swung out at this moment, and it was in front of Jong Lu in the blink of an eye. The latter figure dodged, dodging. Boom. The buildings in front of them were all cut open in front of this blow, sawdust flying and dust rising. Advertisement, is it so rude to face your elders? Jong Lu's voice came from behind. Doflamingo's body froze slightly, and then he laughed again. Breakthrough. His body suddenly turned, and his right foot suddenly kicked out. Leg shave string. Jong Lu raised his leg and kicked the opponent's right foot to face the sky. It can be clearly seen that on Doflamingo's right foot, there are countless small and straight, thin lines like steel wire. In the past 20 years, my growth is completely unexpected. Jong Lu uncle. Doflamingo grinned. Its figure quickly retreated back, and then jumped high. The pink coat vibrated with the wind, spreading its wings like a big bird. Breakthrough. Since we met, just ask for your advice, where am I lacking? Saying that, Doflamingo opened his hands and suddenly dived towards Jong Lu. 5 color strings, sharp lines, immediately drawn lines, cut from the left and right sides towards Jong Lu. The latter slowly raised his head, facing the condescending blow. His expression was calm, and he stretched out his right hand. Die. As the distance got closer, Doflamingo's eyes became fierce, and he suddenly shouted. Chi-chi-chi. The sound of the line cutting through the real thing came out, but at the same time, Doflamingo's body also stopped in the air, and a thick arm was added to his neck. His pupils contracted, and he looked at the man in front of him who was wrapping his neck with a hand. Where 5 color strings had been cut, there wasn't the slightest scratch, not even the robes were torn apart. But how is this possible? He clearly attacked the opponent. Do you want to challenge me with these 3-legged cat methods? Dover. Do you underestimate me too much? Jong Lu said lightly, lifting the other person's neck, slowly lifting it, facing the sun in the sky. The sun was just at noon, and it seemed a little dazzling. Show your true skills. The next second, his right hand suddenly squeezed hard. Crack. A clear voice came out. Brother Doflamingo's neck was broken, and his movements stopped abruptly. Not far away, Crocodile looked stunned. Marshal Teach, who was hiding in the alley and surreptitiously watching the battle, grinned. Thief, ha 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 ha. What a great fight. Chapter 22 reply. Hoo-hoo. A strong wind blew through the sky above Magic Valley Town. The streets that used to be full of people's voices have become quiet at this time, and the dilapidated houses and dust are flying up. The man who ran away in panic, hid behind a bunker in the distance, looked here nervously, swallowed saliva continuously, and his heart was trembling. Breakthrough. Suddenly, a deep laughter sounded. Jong Lu raised his head and looked at the roof on the far side. There, Doflamingo, who is 3 meters tall in a pink feather coat, is looking down at him, his sunglasses shining brightly. Fighting with an elder like you really puts a lot of pressure on my heart. Doflamingo grinned. Stop talking nonsense, Dover. Jong Lu said coldly. I vaguely remember that 20 years ago, although this guy had the opposite personality to Corazon, he obeyed his own words very much. Likewise, respect yourself in your heart. Sure enough, obedient children will always be annoying when they grow up. Use some real strength and let me see how you have grown in the past 20 years. He murmured, his body slightly bent. Children will always go astray in their growth, so adults and elders should guide and educate them in time. The famous heavenly Yaksha, Doflamingo, in his eyes, is just like a naughty child. Times have changed. Jong Lu uncle, haven't you found out yet? Impel down has been down for 20 years, and the world outside has already been turned upside down. The number of pirates continues to skyrocket, and the world situation is changing every day. Now, having said that, Doflamingo grinned, bent his knees, and swooped down. It's not your time anymore. The pink feather coat trembled violently, and his figure suddenly turned into a pink streamer, roaring towards Jong Lu. Hoo-hoo. The wind was surging, and in Jong Lu's eyes, Doflamingo kept getting bigger and bigger, and finally it was in front of him. You talk to me about the times? Where I'm standing. It's my time. He raised his right hand and suddenly clenched it into a fist. At the same time, there was an inexplicable aura that covered his arm like armor. Armament hockey. This is the first time Jong Lu has used hockey since he stepped out of Impel down. Advertisement but facing the nephew in front of him was obviously worth it. The other party is not a third-rate character. His feet stomped on the ground abruptly, with a humming sound. The bricks under his feet shattered directly, and then his body flew out like a cannonball, heading straight for Doflamingo, who was swooping in. Show your strength, otherwise you will die. Jong Lu said coldly. Suddenly, 2 figures roared toward him, and Jong Lu slammed his fist down. It's neat and tidy, without the slightest bells and whistles. Doflamingo's pupils contracted, and he raised his arm to resist. Boom. The airwaves rolled over, and the majestic power burst out. His swooping body suddenly stagnated, and then flew towards the rear at a faster speed. Jong Lu maintained his fist-pushing posture, slowly straightened his waist, and looked forward. Boom 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 boom. A series of explosions continued to be heard. Doflamingo was smashed into the air by his punch, smashing a large area of buildings in Magic Valley Town, and it didn't stop until he fell into the forest outside the suburbs. The smoke and dust rolled, and a clear gully appeared on the street. This The people who watched the battle in secret were trembling in their hearts when they saw this scene. That was Doflamingo, who was smashed and flew out by this person, and he didn't seem to have the slightest resistance to resist. Immediately afterwards, they saw the man in the field bend his knees slightly, and with a bang, the ground under his feet shattered, flying like a cannonball into the suburban forest. A moment later, Jong L saw Doflamingo standing up shaking from the broken trees. "Is this your power?" Touching his sore arm, Doflamingo smiled, but his eyes under the sunglasses were solemn to ultimate. He never underestimated the man in front of him. No matter what era it is in this world, there will never be any more genius-level monsters like the other party. In just 1 year, he has grown from an intern marine to a strong player who can keep pace with Roger, Whitebeard and others. This is not something that humans can do at all, it is like a legend. In the same way, Doflamingo was deeply aware of the secret of the man in front of him. He masters the terrifying ability that makes the whole world go crazy. Even he, deep down in his heart, longs for the help and gift of the other party. "Then, it's up to me now," Doflamingo jerked, his body roaring, armament hockey covering his right fist. In the blink of an eye, it was already in front of Jong L. In the same way, a punch without any bells and whistles was thrown. Jong L raised his head, clenched his fist, and waved his fist. Boom. Advertisement. The airwaves rolled, and the ground under Jong L's feet collapsed in a circle, and the dust radiated in all directions. Doflamingo's expression changed slightly, and a majestic power surge. He flew out again, smashing more than a dozen trees before stopping. In terms of strength, the gap between the two sides is obvious. It's a strength comparable to that of a monster. No, it's the quality of the entire body. Doflamingo stood up again, his eyes serious. "Breakthrough. Then let you see, my strongest power." Shaking his body, his hands slammed open, his eyes cold. The development of devil fruit, in addition to ordinary control, has a higher level of awakening. As he stepped forward, the weeds under his feet, the ground, and the trees around him all turned into thin white lines, waving gently like ocean waves. And I have reached such a state. When the number of thin white lines reached a certain moment, Doflamingo waved his hands forward suddenly. Wild waves and white lines, tens of thousands of thin white lines, like ocean waves, surged towards Jong L, twisting and spiraling, wrapping them in the middle. Like a big snake, it will crush him. Awakened? "It's really amazing," Jong L said lightly, looking at Doflamingo standing in front of him. In the next second, its figure was swallowed, covered, and shrouded by the white waves. "Breakthrough," Doflamingo chuckled, eyes twinkling. Buzz buzz. The waves formed by thousands of white lines suddenly closed, trying to crush Jong L in the center. However, Doflamingo's smile froze again on his face. The powerful white line was quickly broken. Jong L's figure also stepped out of it. Unscathed, the powerful white line of wild waves did not cause any damage to the opponent. But this level of development, I took control 20 years ago. With a sigh, Jong L stretched out his right hand, tapped the void, and spit out 2 words. Reply. In an instant, the white lines that were visible to the naked eye quickly faded away, and the weeds on the ground and surrounding trees were restored in the next second. Everything returned to the way Doflamingo was before using his abilities. It's like, time has gone backwards. Chapter 23 Awakening Level Collision. Reply to the fruit. Paramecia ability itself is a kind of ability to restore one's own injury and negative state to the previous state, and time progresses with strength. But when Jong L strengthened and evolved this fruit, it became a powerful ability to restore the surrounding and affect objects. Even, it involves time. The scope of its influence has also expanded again, reaching a shocking level. In short, he can turn the surrounding time backwards. There is no doubt that this is a bug-level ability, but compared with the pirate world, many destructive and terrifying fruits, it is not too good. However, its auxiliary ability, as well as its powerful healing ability, is amazing. It can even reverse a person's life and death, and this is also the reason why Jong L chose this ability in the first place. Immortality and injury are enough to give him an absolute advantage in any battle. Are you surprised? Fruit, you are not the only one who can have it. Developing to the level of awakening is also not only possible for you to do it alone. Jong L stepped forward and said lightly, staring at Doflamingo. You don't seem to have a very clear understanding of the world yet. Doflamingo. The latter looked ugly, and the next second, his hands shook, and the surrounding things turned into white lines at a faster speed and a wider range. Buzz buzz. The air is shaking at this moment, and the overwhelming white waves are surging and churning at this moment. Jong L also moved, his body shot out, and he was already in front of Doflamingo in an instant. The latter's expression changed suddenly, and his hands shook. Shield white line. A large white thin line on the ground rolled up in an instant, and quickly built a huge shield in front of him, blocking him. The next second, Jong L's fist slammed hard. Boom. Crack. The huge shield suddenly dented, and the sound of clack resounded continuously, and then it shattered. The shield and white line with amazing defensive power could not even intercept Jong L for a moment. Doflamingo's eyes narrowed, and his body was about to withdraw, but that punch had already been swung and touched his abdomen. Boom. The force exploded, and Doflamingo flew out, leaving a gap between his feet on the ground. Advertisement. Puff. The blood spurted out. Doflamingo raised his head sharply and waved his hands. Uehara white wave. The white line with a radius of nearly several thousand meters was boiling and surging at this moment, wrapping around Zhang Lu, poking, and cutting away. The momentum is very good. Zhang Lu glanced around and chuckled. But to me, it's of no use. As soon as his footsteps stepped on, he instantly turned into nothingness on the white wave line that swept in, and then his figure flashed quickly, rushing towards Doflamingo. The gust of wind whistled, and in almost an instant, it was in front of the other party again. So fast, Brother Doflamingo's expression changed suddenly, and the attack of the white line sweeping and launching was not even comparable to the speed of the opponent's high-speed movement. How strong is this guy? Just thinking about it, the opponent's punch has been swung down. The wind was blowing, and the pressure of the wind made his face hurt. Doflamingo's eyes were cold, his arms raised, and armament hockey wrapped up and blocked him. Boom! His body flew out again, and his heart was already shocked, and he even felt a deep sense of fear. It was the first time I had seen such a situation that just a simple punch could cause such a huge pressure on him. What? After flying out nearly 500 or 600 meters, Brother Doflamingo shouted, and stopped the trend of retreating. Seeing the figure in front, it shot out again, and even the terrifying speed even the air whistled sharply, as if someone was whistling. This battle from the sky almost scared him. Visible to the naked eye, Zhang Lu flickered close. In the blink of an eye, the face of the other party was extremely clear. Just like that, Doflamingo, such strength can bring me no pressure. The cold voice came, making his eyes sharp and his heart angry. Of course, it's impossible to stop here. Roaring loudly, word by word, Doflamingo's whole body's aura suddenly rose at this moment, and his body also soared up, rushing into the air. Standing there, you can't avoid my attack. Zhang Lu turned around, stepped on the air with both feet, and charged towards Doflamingo without reducing his speed. Call. Taking a deep breath, Doflamingo suddenly raised his hands, and a fierce light flashed on his sunglasses. 1,000 arrows piercing heart feather strike, line. Advertisement. The endless white lines on the ground shook at this moment, wrapped in purple light, becoming more tough and sharp. Immediately afterwards, thousands of threads wrapped in armed colors took on the shape of wings and pierced towards Zhang Lu at a rapid speed. Shish. At this time, there was even a harsh chirping sound in the air, like the chirping of thousands of birds. Almost instantly, thousands of lines were below Zhang Lu, piercing his body. Reply. Zhang Lu snorted coldly, but the line stopped, but only a part of it dissipated, and the rest was in front of him. Did it affect my fruit ability because of the wrapping of armament hockey? Zhang Lu's heart froze. The next second, his right hand stretched out and slowly held it. As he clenched his fist, breaths like sakura flowers also surrounded his right hand, and they flew out one after another. Emission. Collapse the mountain. Facing countless whistling purple-red lines, Zhang Lu threw his fist, and the fist print swelled. In an instant, endless rays of light flickered out at this moment, the violent air waves began to roll, and ripples spread around. The thousands of purple-red lines were firmly blocked by this punch. After a stalemate for about 4 or 5 breaths, Zhang Lu flew back and retreated, and the countless lines pierced through it also fell down as if losing power. Doflamingo watched this scene, his eyes sank slightly. Still, it didn't work. His hands trembled slightly, the ground trembled, and 16 strands of giant white lines wrapped around high-density armament hockey rose rapidly. This is the final blow. Muttering, Brother Doflamingo's eyes became fierce. Before the battle, he knew very well that the opponent was strong, unimaginably strong. However, he still wanted to know whether his 20 years of hard work had gotten close to the other party and could enter the other party's line of sight. And that precious virtual night number. Thinking of this, Doflamingo's eyes instantly became crazy, and the Conqueror's breath on his body was also undisguised at this moment, sweeping out unscrupulously. 16 holy bullets God punishment. 16 purple-red giant waves and white lines, twisting, whistling, soaring into the sky, reached the back of Doflamingo, then turned around and rushed towards the opposite side. Will it be the final blow of everything? Zhang Lu felt the breath coming from the other side, and his eyes narrowed slightly. His right hand rested on the handle of the knife at his waist, but soon, it was released again. Very loud. But I don't need a knife yet. Chapter 24. The view gate is open. Towards the peacock. Doflamingo is definitely very accomplished in the development of hockey. He is also undoubtedly a very talented, gifted man. Whether it is the awakening of devil fruit or the master of hockey, it is not something that ordinary powerhouses can do. At this moment, it merged with the high-density armament hockey's huge white line, which was raging, tore through the void, and shot towards him. Looking at it, there is a sense of oppression that thousands of artillery fires are being fired in unison. Zhang Lu let go of the right hand that was holding the hilt at his waist, slowly lifted it, pointed it forward, and his eyes were also full of seriousness and solemnity at the moment. Being able to combine armament hockey with the ability after awakening is undoubtedly extremely destructive. Even him can be a threat. Although Devil Fruit's ability is powerful, hockey in this world can restrain or counteract it. A powerful momentum surged out from Zhang Lu's body at this moment, his black hair also fluctuated violently, and an invisible circle of energy ripples surrounded his body. Open the door, open it. Shut the door, open it. Life gate, open. Injury door, open. Duman, open. Jingmun, open. As the words spit out from his mouth, the momentum on his body became stronger and stronger. When the Jingmun opened, the whole body instantly burst into green light. The violent energy fluctuations swept across all directions at this moment, and the expression on his face looked hideous and crazy. 8 inner gates. These 6 types of reinforcement, after derivation, Jong L acquired the skills. And because of the ability to restore fruit, he was able to fully open the 8 gates, burst out terrifying physical strength, and exerted the strongest combat power. Again, this is his trump card. 20 years ago, in the battle with Roger, Whitebeard and others, the strongest state that his opponents and friends saw was the opening of the 7th gate, that is, the shock. Also because of the shocking door he used, the trick he used was the Day Tiger, so he got the title of the Day Tiger. Wow, the powerful green energy was just right, rubbing against the air, making Jong L's body full of the sharp sound of birds chirping. Bring it on, Dover. With a loud roar, Jong L stared angrily, staring at the white line of the 10 six-paths waves wrapped in high-concentration armament hockey, which was less than 100 meters away from him. Shish. There was a whistling sound that pierced the air, and a huge wave of 10 six-paths purple-red-white lines crossed a distance of 100 meters in an instant and arrived in front of him. Breakthrough. Advertisement. Flamingo's frantic laughter echoed through the air. Jong L rolled with green energy all over his body, and his fist suddenly swung out. Towards the peacock. In an instant, thousands of fist marks wrapped in flames appeared in the air. At this moment, Jong L threw his fists wildly, his fists rubbing against the air, and under the 8 inner gates, his body function reached an unprecedented height. Small wounds continued to appear on the body, and the skin was burned, but it quickly returned to its original appearance. The ability to restore fruit negates the negative effects of 8 inner gates. Buzz buzz. Thousands of fist marks appeared in the void in an instant, wrapped in flames, whizzing forward like a meteor. The green energy on Jong L's body was boiling, and the powerful aura even affected the surrounding space, appearing to distort and fluctuate. Boom 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 boom. In an instant, the flaming fist print collided with 16 fuchsia bullets. The whole sky was shaking at this moment, the fist mark and the murderous bullet collided with each other, and then shattered, and one after another ripples kept flashing out. Aha! Jong L roared, shook his fist, and turned into a phantom. 10 six-paths purple-red murderous bullets, dragging long traces in the sky, and the offensive is also extremely amazing. This Flamingo blocked the final blow of everything, and naturally he would not be weak. Bang 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 bang. In the sky of Magic Valley Town, there was a continuous, muffled sound that shook everyone's eardrums. The pirates were about to suffocate, and they couldn't imagine how the 2 people in the sky did such a scene. There is still such a powerful person in the world. Is this the powerhouse of New World? It's shocking. Such a fighting momentum, as long as you get closer, they will be torn to pieces by their aftermath. The trembling voices kept coming out, and the pirates felt genuine awe and fear for the 2 who were fighting. The deafening collision sound lasted for 2 or 3 minutes. Above the sky, ripples spread, and the flames burst like fireworks, falling down and landing on the ground. Everything seemed to calm down again. Whirring. Flamingo looked ugly, bent over and gasped. Looking at the figure wrapped in green energy not far away, there was a haze in his heart. Advertisement. The most powerful attack was easily neutralized. The other party was like an insurmountable mountain, laying in front of him, the breath of the yuan, oppressing him, trembling all over. Is this the end, Dover? This is all your strength. Jong L was surrounded by green energy, majestic and ferocious, and his voice became deep. Breakthrough. It turns out that in front of you, I'm still so incompetent. For 20 years, I have worked hard to cultivate, manage my own power, and surpass my father. Go beyond Rocinante. Flamingo burst out laughing. He smiled and smiled, but 2 lines of tears slowly fell under the sunglasses. Yes, in the past 20 years, he has continued to work hard, struggle, become stronger, and make himself a higher status. For what? All the reasons are just the man who left a deep impression in his heart 20 years ago. He wants the other party to recognize him, to enter the other party's line of sight, to be praised and acknowledged by the other party. 20 years passed by in the blink of an eye, until today, he finally saw each other again and challenged him. However, that bottomless strength still brutally hit him. In front of the other party, he is nothing. In the end, it's still the same as it was 20 years ago. In your eyes, I can't compare to anyone. My ambition, my revenge, is meaningless. Flamingo's whole body was shaking, and his heart was full of despair. 20 years of hard work, just for the moment when he enters the other party's line of sight and is recognized by the other party. But until now, everything is undoubtedly over. He was defeated so badly that it could even be said that he was powerless to fight back. High in the air, Flamingo's voice echoed. Jong L stood there silently. After a while, he raised his head and looked at the man in front of him. In my impression, you are not so down after failure, a desperate person. Dover. Flamingo's body trembled and he raised his head sharply. Chapter 25 Number 3. The next second, the air in front of him was shaken by green energy, and a fist quickly enlarged in front of him. Boom. Flamingo fell, hitting the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. Then, a pair of feet appeared in front of him. It was Jong L, looking down at him intently. When you were a child, you never gave in, stubborn and independent, showing a completely different character from the rest of the world. You're a stinky, disgusting little guy. Jong L's voice came. Flamingo shuddered, the corners of his eyes trembled, and more tears flowed out. But I know you respect me very much. So, I will teach you no less than Rocinante. After a pause, Jong L bent down and stared into each other's eyes again. My love for you is the same. Flamingo caught his breath, and then a sob came, and he started to cry. 20 years later, you appeared in front of me with such an arrogant attitude and challenged me. Is it for my approval? Flamingo. Jong L suddenly grinned, and there was a touch of gentleness in his eyes. Woohoo, I didn't. Flamingo's snot, tears welled up, but he still stubbornly denied it. What a stupid kid. Then I recognize your talent, Dover. Jong L laughed. You're just a little bit. I'll help you make up for that. When Flamingo heard the words, his breathing suddenly stopped, and his eyes widened, understanding what the other party meant. Then, Flamingo, Huo Mingu's number, do you want to inherit it? Sure enough, the next second made him excited, and the trembling words entered his ears. I want to. After a few breaths of silence, Flamingo's trembling voice sounded. A smile appeared on Jong L's face, and he bent down and put his right hand on the other's shoulder. Reply. Advertisement. Flamingo's body trembled, and an invisible force swept through it, and his body, which had been seriously injured, returned to a perfect moment. Number 3. Flamingo, I hope you will live up to the numbers you represent in the future. Jong L laughed softly. I will not. Flamingo took a deep breath and said solemnly. As a reward for inheriting Huo Mingu's numbers, I will upgrade and give you new powers. Jong L quickly raised his right hand and said slowly. Flamingo's pupils contracted, excited. This scene has finally come. The reason why he wants to join Shu Yi is this precious number, besides wanting to gain the trust of the people in front of him. Only those who get the number can get the gift from the Lord of the Void Knight. Hold your breath, close your eyes, and quietly feel the power surging from the depths of your body. When Jong L's words came, Flamingo closed his eyes and calmed his mind. In the next second, an inexplicable and mysterious power swept through his body, and immediately after that, he heard a faint whisper, as if the gods were talking in his ears, preaching, and telling him the true meaning of power. Then, he saw his armament haki turn into a golden sakura flower that fluttered, and a red light flashed in his eyes. You are strengthening the target armament haki, the strengthening is successful, and the advancement is emission. You are strengthening the target observation haki, strengthening success, and advancing to foreknowledge. In Jong L's ear, he withdrew his right hand after the alarm sounded. Opposite Flamingo, with a shocked expression, also opened his eyes at this time. Almost instantly, his armament haki, observation haki, entered a whole new realm. And in his realm, this means that his strength has greatly advanced. Among Shichibukai, his strength rankings will surely move forward again. Even the 4 emperors might be able to touch it. And this also reflects the mystery and power of the man in front of him. He can bestow great power on others, but what about himself? What an astonishing degree it has reached. Simply unimaginable. How do you feel? Jong L laughed. Unprecedented power. Flamingo took a deep breath, his sunglasses flashed, and said in a deep voice. This is the power your father once mastered. Jong L said. The latter was shocked, and the familiar face flashed across his face. Did the man who chose to commit suicide ever possess such powerful power? Yes, Don Quixote Honagu, who was killed by his own son in the original book, chose suicide because of that big event, his own family. With such a powerful force, he chose to commit suicide. Advertisement. Flamingo sneered, but a trace of sadness flashed in his eyes under the sunglasses. That's what makes him different from you. It also makes me believe that you will achieve higher achievements than him. Jong L said lightly. Huo Mingu was still too gentle, with powerful strength, but he couldn't pass his own level. In contrast, the theory that Flamingo believes in is the most effective in this chaotic world. As long as he is given enough strength, he can definitely shock the world. I need your information, Dover. Then, Jong L said aloud. Compared to me, the Baroque Work Club has a wider sphere of influence in the first half of the sea. Flamingo's eyes flashed and he said softly. He had already recognized that the man in the grimace mask was Crocodile, one of the Shichibukai, who he had always wanted to work with. In the case of Alabasta, his power has disintegrated. Jong L said. So, what do you want to know? Flamingo said. He didn't refuse anymore, didn't consider friendship, even if it was based on interests, the man in front of him was worth cooperating and paying for. I want to know where Fire Fist Ace is now. Jong L said solemnly. Going out of Impel down, in addition to rebuilding the virtual night and looking for candidates for numbering, Ace is undoubtedly the point that he is most concerned about. The second division of the Whitebeard Pirates, Fire Fist Ace. Flamingo was stunned for a moment, and said suspiciously. Jong L nodded. Recently, there is indeed some news that this guy is in the first half. I'll send someone to find out, but it may take time. Flamingo said solemnly. Why is the man in front of him interested in the Whitebeard Pirates? That old man from Whitebeard is not to be provoked. Then trouble you, Dover. Jong L laughed. This is what I should do, Jong L uncle. Flamingo smiled. The two people who had been beaten to death just a moment ago were now acting like fathers and sons, showing a warm and harmonious picture. It also made Crocodile, who came here, stunned for a while, unable to distinguish the situation. Company authoring the two of you to play here, what about the family drama? Chapter 26 Ace's Message. Magic Valley Town. The streets were full of people, and there was an endless stream of newcomers coming and going. Loud voices came from everywhere. After yesterday's battle, the pirate town returned to peace today. Destroyed houses have also been rebuilt very quickly. On the surface, it seems that this place is the same as usual, but everyone who lives here knows in their hearts that there are two monsters on the island that are absolutely not to be provoked. Yes, monsters. In the forest outside the suburbs, trees in a radius of thousands of meters have disappeared, and they have all become eerily tough white lines. This kind of scene also makes people feel horrified. What kind of ability is it to change the state of matter? They have never heard of it, they have never seen it. In the knowledge of the people of Mogu Town, those who can do this kind of thing are undoubtedly monsters. In a manner a little far from the bustling street, a group of people are sitting here, observing each other with different eyes. Sitting at the back, on the steps is Jong L. On the left and right sides are Crocodile with a grimace mask, Flamingo in a pink feather coat, and in the other corner is a shivering Foxy. Flamingo. On the stone on the right in front of him, the man sitting turned out to be the famous Shichibukai Flamingo. What shocked him even more was the identity of his boss, and who was the guy with the grimace mask. Looking at Shichibukai's eyes, there was no wavering at all, it wasn't like he was panicking at all. My people are already inquiring about the news of Fire Fist Ace, and I believe they will receive a response soon. After a moment of silence, Flamingo spoke up. It is good. Jong L nodded, as if thinking about something in his heart. It's just, I don't agree, you're shooting at Whitebeard's people now. After all, having said that, Flamingo glanced at the other two in front of him. They don't even seem to be numbered. Your serial number has not been found. Hearing this, Jong L had a hint of surprise in his eyes, then raised his head and smiled. You may have misunderstood. I don't want to do anything to Whitebeard, even if it's against him. Not at this moment. Flamingo was startled and nodded slightly. Crocodile looked at Jong L with a puzzled look. Numberer, what is it? Breakthrough. You really don't know anything. The numbered person, that is an incomparably precious, representing the source of power and status. Flamingo laughed. Right now, it's not the time to give you a number. Advertisement. Jong L smiled lightly. Not far away, Foxy's eyes were about to pop out. What did he hear? Whitebeard. Boss, do you want each other Whitebeard? My god, that is one of the 4 emperors of the New World, the legendary Great Pirate. The strongest man in the world. Also, what is the numberer? At this moment, Foxy felt as if he knew an unimaginable and shocking secret. Flamingo. Suddenly, the mysterious cold man in the grimace mask spoke up. Oh, Flamingo raised his eyebrows and looked at the grimace mask across from him. Do you know the Straw Hat Boy? Crocodile said coldly. Straw Hat Boy. Flamingo had a puzzled look on his face, but he quickly reacted with a grin on the corner of his mouth. I remember. You mean the new guy who beat you? Crocodile looked gloomy. He should be on this island soon. What does this mean? Could it be that you want me to deal with a newcomer? Flamingo laughed in surprise. Breakthrough. Don't forget, you are not yet a numbered person, you are not my colleague. I'm not obligated to do anything for you. Crocodile heard the words and fell silent. His eyes flickered, and he had great doubts about the term numberer. What exactly does that mean? A simple number that would make Heavenly Yaksha, Flamingo, one of the Shichibukai, so proud and proud. Jong L rose too fast and disappeared too fast. People may have heard the name of the virtual night organization it established, but it is not clear what it represents. Straw Hat, Monkey D. Luffy. Jong L also smiled softly at this time. When he mentioned the name, there was a strange look in his eyes, which seemed to be a memory, and he seemed to be full of interest. Why, are you also interested in him? Flamingo noticed his expression and asked quietly. Hehehehe. A boy with some potential. As for interest, I can't talk about it right now. Advertisement. Jong L shook his head and said. Although Luffy is the protagonist of this world, the son of destiny, but now, the gap between the two sides is still huge. Your words made me more interested in him. Flamingo said blankly. Don't worry about it, Jong L said. Afterwards, the courtyard returned to calm again. They are waiting. The underground dark world of Master Flamingo naturally has its own set of procedures for snooping information. This kind of information, inquiring about information, even sometimes surpasses the intelligence system of marine and world government. After all, in this world, which island, which ship, would be short of people tainted with darkness? In the afternoon, a hurrying figure suddenly entered the manor, all the way to the deepest part. After glancing at Jong L, who was sitting on the steps with a casual posture, the man hurried to Flamingo's ear and whispered a word. Afterwards, the man bent down and saluted, then turned around and left quickly. It seems that the speed of these guys inquiring about the news is quite fast. Flamingo laughed and looked at Jong L. Where? Hearing such words, Jong L naturally understood that there was news of Ace's whereabouts. Someone saw him in a small town called Rembo, more than 50 miles northwest of Alabasta. Well, just today. After a pause, Flamingo smiled again. What's even more strange is that they also saw a pirate named Blackbeard here not long ago. This Fire Fist Ace seems to be here for Blackbeard. Saying that, Flamingo's eyes flickered. Blackbeard, Marshal Teach, is Ace, the captain of the 2nd Division of the Whitebeard Pirates. Flamingo got interested. Both members of the Whitebeard Pirates came to the first half of the Grand Line. What is the reason for this? Remo Town. It's not far from here. Hearing this, Jong L did not answer the other party's question, but stood up immediately. Gone. Leaving 2 words, his figure is already striding towards the door. Crocodile, who was wearing a grimace mask, and Fox, who was still in shock, saw his boss get up and quickly followed. Are you in such a hurry? Flamingo was stunned for a moment, and his eyes flashed. The man who can make Jong L pay such attention is probably extraordinary. Could it be that he and Fire Fist Ace have a connection unknown to outsiders? Chapter 27 Ohara's Past. Walking out of the manor, Jong L and others walked towards the port of Magic Valley Town. On the street, everyone who saw them hurried to get out of the way, obviously they had deeply remembered Jong L's appearance. But for a moment, the 3 of them were close to the port and could see their warships in the Foxy. Are you finally leaving? Hidden in the crowd, Blackbeard Marshal Teach, who dared not show his face for a while, looked at Jong L with flickering eyes. He easily defeated Flamingo, and used his magical power to restore the opponent's physical state unscathed. This man's methods are as extraordinary as a god. He hid himself very well, and he knew very well that it was not the time to have a conflict with the other party. On top of that, he wasn't sure to outwit the opponent. At the same time, Jong L, who was walking towards the port, saw a group of people disembarking. The young man in the lead laughed and said something to his partner. He wore a straw hat on his head, and behind him was a green-haired man with a waist. There were 3 knives in the middle. What a coincidence. A smile appeared on Jong L's mouth. Just as he was about to leave Magic Valley Town, the straw hats just arrived here. The eyes under the crocodile mask beside him immediately turned cold, and the golden hook in his left hand couldn't help but lift up. The Straw Hat Boys. Grinning his teeth, Crocodile's lips came out of those 4 words. Don't be impulsive, we have more important things to do now. Jong L suddenly spoke up. Crocodile's raised left hand paused, abruptly stopping the movement that was about to attack. Who is that kid, to make the ghost-faced man so angry? Foxy observed secretly and said quietly in his heart. As the 2 sides walked forward, the distance became closer and closer, and soon they were face to face. Straw Hat Boy Luffy seemed to be sensing something, his eyes shifted and he looked at them. When he saw Jong L, Crocodile and Foxy who were staring at him, he was stunned for a moment, and then greeted him friendly. Ha ha ha, how are you? Jong L nodded with a smile, Crocodile's eyes were cold, and Foxy waved with a smile. In the blink of an eye, the 2 sides are about to pass each other. Suddenly, the tall and slender woman walking behind slammed her footsteps, then turned her head and stared straight at Jong L. Robin-san, what's wrong? The blonde-haired Sanji said suspiciously, but also looked at the man in front of him. The entire Straw Hat team stopped at this moment and turned their heads curiously. They looked at Robin and then at Jong L. Obviously, after the Alabasta incident not long ago, the new companion who got on the boat by himself knew each other. Yes, is that you? Nico Robin's voice was trembling, mixed with tension, excitement and anticipation. Jong L smiled and looked at the woman who was both familiar and unfamiliar in front of him. Advertisement. His memory was still when the other party was only half a person tall and his head touched his leg. In a blink of an eye, more than 10 years have passed, and the girl of that year has grown into such a tall beauty. Crocodile's eyes were cold, staring at the partner who was also familiar to him, wondering what he was thinking. Unexpectedly, after he was arrested, the other party chose to stand with the Straw Hat Boy who defeated him. This damn it woman. At this moment, Jong L opened his mouth with a smile. Long time no see, I didn't expect you to be so old, Robin. Sunshine, a gentle, familiar voice came out of his ears, making Nico Robin tremble, and tears immediately poured out. 2. Very good, you are really still alive. The next second, the tall, mature, and sexy woman threw herself into Jong L's arms and hugged him tightly. I thought you were dead. Woo 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 woo. I thought that there would be no relatives in the whole world. You're still alive, you really are alive. Jong L. Nico Robin's voice was trembling, and tears welled up in his eyes, which soon wet Jong L's shirt and made him open his mouth, and finally became silent. Then, he stretched out his hand and hugged the woman tightly. Have you forgotten, Robin? I said I can't die. Robin didn't seem to hear it, who would believe such outrageous words? How in the world is it possible that someone is immortal? 2. Great, you are not dead yet, I still have relatives. She trembled in her voice and kept saying excitedly. Robin-san. Sanji, who was standing at the back, saw this scene and his whole body turned to stone. But the rest of the team had different expressions. There is also a new understanding of the woman who suddenly broke into their boat. At the same time, I became extremely curious about Jong L. Okay, Robin, I'll be fine. Again, your companions will laugh at you. Jong L smiled comfortingly, patted the other person's back, and his face was also complicated and emotional. In the Ohara incident, the scenes of him blocking the current 3 admirals with one person's power slowly resurfaced. After Saren's death, Spandane was beaten by himself, and the 3 admirals were repelled by himself again and again. In the end, Sengoku, Garp, Sora and others joined forces to force him to leave. Although he did his best to save a group of Ohara scholars and let Robin escape, he also paid a huge price for it, and the distance from Marine and the world government was getting farther and farther. The past events flashed by, and Jong L's eyes became serious. The world has a problem. Advertisement. He's known since he's been here, and he's been working on changing that. The establishment of the Zai Palace was an attempt 20 years ago. To understand the background of this world, the strength of the world government, and the resistance ahead, these are all things he has done. So, he chose to hibernate and made an agreement with Garp, Sengoku, and Sora to guard Impel down for 20 years. Finally, I stepped out of Impel down not long ago. His plan will start again. The majestic ambition will also be displayed in front of the world again. And, in the end, it will shock everyone's hearts in a shocking way. Companion. Hearing this, Nico Robin was stunned for a moment, then remembered that the others were still there. They are all good partners, and they deserve your trust. Jong Lu looked at the familiar faces in front of him and said with a smile. Monkey D. Luffy, Roronoa Zoro, Sanji, Usopp, Chopper, Nami. The entire Straw Hat Pirates were standing opposite him at this time. Is this a reunion after 20 years, a warning to me? Robin looked at the serious face of the man in front of him and asked with a smile. Good, I still have things to do, and being able to find the right partner will give me more peace of mind. Jong Lu nodded. I can follow you. Nico Robin's eyes brightened and he said through gritted teeth. That would be more dangerous than you can imagine, Robin. Jong Lu smiled slightly. Afterwards, he looked at the warships at the port, and his expression became serious. Sorry, I have to get out of here now. After a pause, Jong Lu grinned. Enjoy your new life, Robin. We'll see you again. Saying that, he stepped forward and strode towards the port. In the blink of an eye, the figure was gone, leaving behind the Straw Hat Boys, with curiosity and doubts on their faces. Who is he? Besides, why do I think the ghost-faced man next to me is also familiar? Luffy said suspiciously. Maybe soon, you will know who he is. Robin's eyes flickered, and his face was complicated. That man once sat on the beach and chatted with himself about the world, life, and dreams. Therefore, she is very clear about what the other party wants to do, and she also understands it very well. Now that he has appeared again, this man will surely shock the whole world in an unimaginable way. Chapter 28 Long Time No See. The sea is magnificent, and the years change with vicissitudes. In almost every era, there will be several big figures standing on the top of the world. They shine with incomparably hot brilliance and take away the light of everyone in the world. But no matter how bright the meteor is, there will still be a moment when it falls to the ground and loses its light. The Sea Lord Rocks and the Pirate King Roger, who were once famous powerhouses in this world, eventually fell and were buried in the sea. But there is such a person, as he himself said. The era I stand in is my era. As long as he stands in the era, it will surely shine with the light that belongs to him. This man is undoubtedly Jong Lu. Nico Robin was in a complicated mood. She didn't expect to meet the man who had left a deep impression on her throughout her life. Unexpectedly, he was actually still alive. Different from Flamingo's awe of Jong Lu and his desire for recognition, Robin regards Jong Lu as a relative. Above this sea, the only relatives left. And based on her understanding of Jong Lu, I am afraid that in the near future, the sea will inevitably shake, and unimaginable events will occur. After Straw Hat Crew had a brief encounter with Jong Lu, they continued to walk towards Magic Valley Town. On the other side, in the secluded manner, in front of Flamingo. Forgive me, brother Flaming, I promise there will be no next time. I will never lose your face again. With embarrassing scars on her cheeks, Bellamy was kneeling and begging. He escaped the catastrophe of the past few days, but that didn't mean he was safe. Without the permission of the man in front of him to live, he was equivalent to death. Forgive you. Breakthrough. You are very lucky to be injured by that man, yet sheltered by him. I'm starting to find you interesting. Those who are blessed by luck will always have good achievements. Flamingo's eyes flickered, staring at Bellamy in front of him, and laughed lowly. I want you to do one thing, and after you do it, you can still carry my signboard and show off your power. Bellamy was stunned for a moment, then nodded quickly. No matter what, I'm willing to do it for you. Flamingo let out a low laugh, remembering the kid Crocodile mentioned, and it seemed that even Jong Lu was concerned. Magic Valley Town. A group of people came today, led by the Straw Hat Boy Luffy. I want you to try him. Advertisement. Bellamy hurriedly agreed. No problem, I will do this perfectly. Please leave it to me. Flamingo looked at the man in front of him, and suddenly felt that the other party was ridiculous. Breakthrough. After laughing loudly, he waved his hand as if to drive away flies. Go. Bellamy breathed a sigh of relief, and he hurriedly turned to leave here. When he collected the Straw Hat Boy Luffy's bounty outside, and saw the 30 million Bailey above, he was slightly startled, and then showed a wicked smile. I will definitely do well in this matter. Exactly. I'm holding back my anger, so let's get out of your anger. Straw Hat Luffy. The plot of Magic Valley Town is slowly advancing and being staged. Meanwhile, Naval Headquarters, Marineford, in the Marshal's office. Boom. The dull sound of his fist hitting the tabletop made Sengoku abruptly raise his head and look at the officer in front of him with a serious expression. Jong Lu and Flamingo fought in Magic Valley Town. How is the result? In an instant, Sengoku's calm mood became tense. It should have been Flamingo's fiasco, but after the fight, they didn't seem to have a bigger conflict. Our people noticed that the two entered Flamingo's estate together with a man wearing a grimace mask. The headmaster said in a deep voice. He also knew about Admiral Jong Lu, the Day Tiger, and he naturally knew why the marshal in front of him was so concerned about him. A real strong person is not limited by his identity. Jong Lu Admiral is undoubtedly such a person. Even as an intern marine, he can still shake the world. Jong L and Doflamingo. Sengoku's face was solemn, and after a while it became gloomy. Hopefully it's not as I thought, but the odds are too great. After all, he was with Doflamingo's father. How many people in the world can dare to talk about friendship with celestial dragons and live on an equal footing? This sounds absurd to outsiders. For celestial dragons, it is also an unimaginable horror, absolutely not allowed. Advertisement. The descendants of the 20 kings, their existence represents the gods of this world. God, how can you make friends with humans? Become an equal being. But, 20 years ago, there was a man who did this. Neither that man nor that celestial dragons touched the taboos of the world. This guy is really a dangerous person who makes people headaches. Just got out of Impel Down and got in touch with Doflamingo. At this moment, Garp, who was sitting beside him, laughed. You're too worried too, Sengoku. Although Jong L seems to have no brains in his actions, his heart is righteous, but his thoughts are a little different from ours, and he will always do outrageous things. But I have to say that the things he did look really cool. Garp said, laughing. Even he admired the great things the other party had done. There are few people in the world who have such courage again. Befriend the celestial dragons, stop the Buster Call, step into the Holy Land Mariajoy, fight a bunch of celestial dragons, and face the 5 elders face to face. Such a thing, even Roger can't do it. In the pirate world, there are heroes like Whitebeard, Golden Lion, and Roger. Among Marine, there are also powerful people like Jong L. It's just a pity that neither world government nor Marine seems to be able to tolerate a rebellious guy like Jong L. Garp, don't forget who we are, Sengoku said solemnly. In any case, Jong L's current identity is Marine, and it is not a good thing to have a rash conflict with Shichibukai. We must warn. After a moment of contemplation, he quickly dialed Jong L's phone bug. On the warship that was heading towards Remo Town, a deep voice suddenly sounded. Blue blue blue. Jong L was taken aback for a moment, then took out the phone bug from his arms. The image of the phone bug is familiar, with a serious expression. Hey, Sengoku. Without much hesitation, Jong L connected directly. This is also the first time he has spoken to this old friend since he came out of Impel Down. Hearing the familiar and unfamiliar voice, Sengoku's eyes narrowed slightly. Long time no see, Jong L. Chapter 29 The Fading Friendship. Long time no see, Sengoku. Jong L raised his head, looked at the sea in front of him, and said with a chuckle. Behind him, Crocodile and Foxy turned their eyes around with a solemn expression on their faces. After leaving Impel Down, why didn't you come to the headquarters to report? Meet me and old friends like Garp and Zephyr. Sengoku said in a deep voice. Garp was on the opposite side, blinking, dropping the donut into his mouth, chewing it, pricking up his ears and listening intently. 20 years ago, Sengoku, Garp, Zephyr, Jong L, they were the mainstay of Marine, and they are the same as today's Marine 3 Admiral, Aokiji, Akainu, Kizaru. While they are colleagues, they are also friends who talk about everything in private. As an intern Marine, entering naval headquarters seems to be unable to even enter the door of justice. After a moment of silence, Jong L came over with a slightly sneering voice. It also made Sengoku and Garp startled, and their eyes became complicated. Admiral, who was once a high-ranking man, has now even become an intern Marine, and his life's road is almost visible to the naked eye. It would be very uncomfortable to change to anyone. If you are free, come and meet our old friends. Sengoku said with a sigh, his words a little emotional. Besides, I'm enjoying my free life right now. Jong L Kaido. You fought Doflamingo. Sengoku felt that he could no longer chat, and the identities of the two sides were also awkward, so he decided to cut directly to the subject. It seems that Marine's intelligence news is faster than I expected. Jong L laughed. It's not a good thing to have a conflict with Shichibukai, Jong L. Especially someone as sensitive as Doflamingo. Sengoku's words make a point. Jong L naturally understood what the other party meant, he smiled. I just saved an innocent person who almost died at his feet. As for the others, Master Marshal, and some people who have been watching me secretly, don't think about it. Sengoku fell silent. He's known for his wit, but Jong L isn't bad either. Obviously, there are deep meanings in the words of both parties. He was talking about Jong L's contact with Doflamingo, and the other party was also talking about the eyes that were staring at him secretly. Jong L, we are open and honest, and you can ignore other things, but I hope you can pay attention to your next actions. As an old friend, I really don't want what happened 20 years ago to happen again. Advertisement. After a moment, Sengoku sighed. Of course not, I've never been a troublemaker. On the contrary, I'm afraid of trouble. Jong L laughed. That's good, Sengoku nodded. Then, the phone bug hung up. 20 years apart, the conversation between the two sides seems to be a lot more blunt and unfamiliar. Sengoku let out a sigh, looking complicated. I seem to sense that he's getting farther and farther from us, Garp. The opposite Garp was taken aback for a moment, then smiled. You are too sensitive, Sengoku. At the same time, on the bow of the warship, facing the sea breeze, Jong L's calm face showed a touch of complexity, followed by a sigh. Time, experience, is a powerful thing that can change everything in human beings, including their feelings for each other. 20 years is a long time compared to human beings, enough to change a lot. Like Sengoku, Jong Lu also felt that the distance between them was widening. From the moment he walked out of Impel Down, he had a vague feeling until the end of the conversation, and it was finally confirmed. 20 years ago, Sengoku would have yelled at this kind of thing, instead of using such a vague accusatory tone. The cautious friendship has already opened up the distance. Alright, after all, what I'll be doing soon. I will also part ways with everyone in the marine. Jong Lu muttered. Looking at the looming island ahead, he cheered up again. Remo Town is a town on an unnamed island not far from Magic Valley Town. It doesn't appear on the map either because it has no name. It can only be reached by accidental voyage, or by knowing the exact location. In fact, there are not many such islands on the sea, but many. Seeing that the island in front of him became clearer and clearer, a smile gradually appeared on the corner of Jong Lu's mouth. His relatives in this world are undoubtedly limited. Rouge is one, and so is Ace. Although he hates that guy Roger, he loves his nephew and sister very much. The warship quickly arrived at the shore of the island. Advertisement. Contrary to his expectations, Lumbo Town was extremely lively, and the streets were crowded and prosperous, even more prosperous than Magic Valley Town. The angel statue in the center of the town makes the town full of sacred and literary atmosphere. Less scolding and beatings also made Lumbo Town appear more stable and harmonious. Sir, please come with me. I was walking on the street looking around, when suddenly a figure walked quickly to the front and said in a low voice. Jong Lu wondered. Master Flamingo ordered me to wait for you here. Said the man. Jong Lu understood, and his eyes lit up. With the help of someone, in this small town, it will naturally be easier. Fire Fist Ace arrived in this town yesterday evening. He seems to be looking for someone. I've been wandering around the town all day today, and at the moment, I'm in a small restaurant on the east side. Well, he eats a lot. The man followed Jong Lu and spoke quickly and in a low voice, introducing Ace's situation. Hearing these innocuous words, the smile on Jong Lu's face grew even wider. Along the way, they walked very fast, but after a while, they had reached the small restaurant on the east side that the man said. The facade looked a little deserted, and the situation inside the restaurant was clear at a glance. The guests in twos and threes, Ace with black hair, were lying on their heads in front of the dining table, snoring, snot bubbles shrinking, and the plates next to them were piled high. Well, he fell asleep. The man reporting the news looked a little embarrassed at Ace. Obviously just now, this guy was still eating and drinking full of energy, who would have fallen asleep in a blink of an eye. You can leave now, Jong Lu said with a smile, then walked towards Ace. The man was stunned and wanted to say something, but Crocodile had already reached out and pushed him out, and Foxy also pulled out the fire gun from his waist with a fierce look. Didn't you hear? The boss told you to go. The man's face was angry at first, then he remembered something, and then he showed fear, turned and ran away. Joker's people, he can't be provoked, and he will die if he is not careful. Jong Lu walked slowly to the black-haired man with Madara, who was facing the snoring man, and sat down gently. Crocodile behind him, Foxy came in, he waved his hand lightly, the two understood the meaning, and found a place to sit down. No one disturbed Ace, and for a while there was only the other person's soft purring in the restaurant. Finally meet Ace. Jong Lu's eyes were complicated as he quietly observed the young man in front of him. Chapter 30 We are relatives. The restaurant was very quiet. The owner at the bar was watching Jong Lu, Crocodile and others curiously. Subconsciously, he felt that this group of people was not easy to provoke. Suddenly, Ace, who was lying on the table, trembled slightly, and the snot bubble on her nose shattered with a pop. I'm sorry, boss, I fell asleep just now. Sleepy-eyed Ace, with a smile on his face, said apologetically. The boss didn't answer, but when Ace raised his head, he saw a strange man sitting across from him. After a slight start, he subconsciously nodded in greeting. Boss, check out. Then, he beckoned to the boss at the bar and shouted. Ace. At this moment, Jong Lu opened his mouth with a smile. After a pause, the tone increased, and he repeated it again. Fire Fist Ace. Hearing the other party calling out his name and identity, Ace's eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked at the man opposite him again. Who are you? At the same time, my heart is also on guard. On the sea, there is no shortage of people looking for the strong and taking the head of the opponent to raise their own value. For pirates, danger is almost everywhere. And such a stranger who knows his identity is undoubtedly the most dangerous. Jong Lu. Jong Lu spat out his name and smiled. I've been looking for you for a long time. Saying that, he sighed and shook his head again. The last time I saw you was 20 years ago. Hearing this, Ace was taken aback for a moment. He is exactly 20 years old this year. This man saw him 20 years ago. That is, in his own infancy. Is this too funny? Ha 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 ha, Your Excellency really likes to joke. If it's okay, I'll go first. With that said, Ace stood up from his seat and glanced at both sides. A strange man with a grimace mask and wrapped himself in a cloak, the other with his right hand pointed at himself in a strange posture. Undoubtedly, these two men and the man in front of them are all in the same group. Ace, I'm not kidding. Jong Lu said seriously. As Ace got up, the crocodile on his side and the golden hook in his left hand were also exposed. Sit down, Fire Fist Ace. A low voice came from under the grimace mask. Advertisement. At the same time, Foxy's eyes were also fixed on Ace, and his right hand suddenly trembled. Buzz. The slow light came in an instant, attacking Ace. The latter's complexion changed, and his eyes suddenly became sharp. With a flash of his figure, he avoided the incoming light and grabbed at Jong L, who was directly opposite him. The thief was captured first, and the king was captured first. These three were all in a group, and they were obviously led by the man in front of them. It just made him feel strange that the face of the other party was slightly similar to his own. But Ace also knew very well who his father was. At this moment, Crocodile's figure flashed, and the golden hook of his left hand was in front of Ace, slamming into his fist. Boom. Ace's expression changed slightly, and the other fist burst into flames with a snort. This scene caused the people in the restaurant and the boss standing at the bar to widen their eyes and exclaimed. The next second, Ace punched out, and the flames suddenly expanded. Fire punch. He controlled the strength and the size of the flame, about the size of a basin. But what shocked him was that the other hand waved out again and collided with his flame. Boom. Grains of sand flew and flames swept. In front of Jong L, the sand and the flame collided, making a screeching sound. You are. Ace's eyes narrowed, looking at the man with the grimace mask in front of him, with solemnity and doubts in his eyes. The only person who can use sand fruit is Crocodile, one of Shichibukai. But the opponent, defeated by Luffy, had obviously been sent to Impel down. So, who is the man in front of him? What shocked him even more was that he was afraid. Seeing the conflict between the two sides, the man named Jong L was still sitting there quietly, and his expression didn't even change. This means that the other party is extremely confident. Sit down and say, Fire Fist Ace. The mysterious man in the grimace mask spoke coldly. At the same time, Foxy's slow light struck again and touched Ace's body. In an instant, Ace's pupils shrank, and the whole person froze there, showing a shocked and incredible expression on his face at a speed visible to the naked eye. His time was actually delayed at this moment. Crocodile was surprised when he saw this scene, and glanced at Foxy. Although this kid is timid, afraid, and wretched, his fruit ability is quite buggy. That beam of light, even if he received it, would not end up much better. 30 seconds later, Ace came out of the slow state. He took a deep breath and looked at the trio in front of him with a solemn expression. Who are you? The mysterious person who can use the sand fruit ability, the suspected Crocodile, the weird guy who controls the time ability, and Jong L who is still sitting quietly in front of him. Advertisement. Ace, don't be wary and hostile to us. In this world, I'm the only one who will never harm you. Jong L said with a chuckle, and after a slight pause, he spoke again. Because we are relatives. Better relatives than Newgate. Ace was stunned, looking at the man in front of him. He really felt that the two were quite similar. Is it a long-lost brother? Your name is Portgas D. Ace, right? But soon, the man on the opposite side began to report his home, which also made Ace's mouth open and his eyes widen. And my full name. When he said this, Crocodile next to him listened intently. For many people, Jong L is really too mysterious. His background, his strength, and his abilities are almost unsolved mysteries. At this time, being able to know Jong L's identity, even just his full name and surname, was enough to make him excited. Yes, Portgas D. Jong L. After spitting out the short name, Ace was completely stunned. Crocodile also contracted his pupils, and then his heart suddenly penetrated. Portgas, Jong L and Huaquan Ace have the same surname. So, are they a father-son relationship? The same surname is exactly 20 years apart, and Ace is also exactly 20 this year. There is no problem with this understanding. Portgas. Ace took a deep breath, and just now his eyes brightened, looking at the man in front of him. Rouge, it's my sister. Jong L spoke again. Ace's heart was shocked, and his face was extremely complicated at this moment. He will not doubt the identity of the other party, because this kind of thing is extremely secret to him. In the world, there are not many people who know his background. Unless, it is his relatives. So, you are my uncle. Ace said solemnly. Jong L smiled and nodded. Yes. I've been looking for you for a long time, Ace. Crocodile's expression froze next to him. Not father and son, uncle. Immediately afterwards, his expression became strange, which was very informative. He doesn't understand.